cooked up for us today in the area of knowledge.
Well, thank you very much, Mark. I'm actually not quite sure. I haven't been very specific. As a matter of fact, I've been very nebulous. Would you please just give me a second to readjust the screen? I'll be right back.
Take your time. I don't think anyone's here for the first time. I recognize pretty much everyone's name. They've been here before, and we thank you for your continued dedication and to get this technology out farther and farther. I think once the transmutation starts and a few other things, there's going to be a huge breakthrough all simultaneously, and then the knowledge will just continue to be rapidly released. We don't even know what Mr. Keshe has in store for us or the universal community, so to speak. We have a clue of it, but we're just tapping into understanding the totality of what's.
Did you need a vowel?
Meaning A, E, I, O, or U? Sometimes Y and W?
Yeah, I think some of the agencies are missing a few vowels. They're not exactly complete. Anyway, good afternoon, everybody. It's a beautiful Sunday afternoon, and thank you all for joining us to this North American team meeting. It wouldn't be complete without the rest of you, and it wouldn't be this strong and this successful. And so we want to honor all those who are present today and who will be present in the future as they listen to these recordings. And the subject, of course, is Professor Marin Keshe, is the father of the modern plasma science. And as we're trying to describe these things in layman's terms, this is the Keshe Foundation Spaceship Institute, Teachings on Plasma Science. We're at the basic inner space level, and as such, we're going to be discussing nebulous space. My name is Alexander. I'm from Canada. It is September the 4th, 2022. This is the Keshe Foundation North America Plasma Education Series.
Alex, before you start, could you tell us, not everyone's a great English speaker, but could you tell us what this term nebulous space means? We could look it up, but would you just share a little bit so we can kind of get the context?
Okay, you've jumped ahead by 2 slides.
All right, then I'll wait for your presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mark. And you see, the thing is as we're trying to clarify the terminology, and this is an important point that you brought up, is because we're dealing with a new subject. We're dealing with advanced science, and so the terminology was very important. This is why we're still logged as far as this group is concerned in the basics, because we're only dealing with a small percentage of the population. So as new people come in, they will be going through the same shock therapy that we've been going through in terms of understanding and becoming aware of the new technology. So we started in October 2020 in Brazil with the basic teaching series, and we progressed to basic understanding, basic knowing, basic insight. We covered basic Earth space, and we're in the concluding stages of the basic inner space. And part of this basic inner space is this nebulous space. So the term nebulous, of course, is non-specific. And space, well, space is pretty non-specific as well. And, you know, when we look at the universe and we try and explain to new knowledge seekers, and all of us here are regardless of our position, we're all new knowledge seekers because it is new knowledge to us. when we're looking at man's universe, it's that tiny little red dot in the bottom right-hand corner. And so we had to understand the various Earth-space concurrencies because we're all so greedy and want that piece of the pie. And that pie is actually in the sky, and the sky is the nebulous point somewhere in the sky, because nebul means sky, and this is where Moses was granted a view of the promised land before his death. So the nebulous point is somewhere in the sky, and since history repeats the boundaries of thought, we are still searching for outer space, and we can't find outer space because we don't know where inner space is. And hopefully by the end of this, we will find out why us plebeians are unwelcome and who is doing the unwelcoming. So we find that this is a historical reference that goes back to Rome, where we were seeing a privileged class. And with the plasma science, we're all privileged because you see, we all are is part of this sun space. And so in this sun space is in the sky, isn't it? It's somewhere in the sky. And it's not next to the laundromat, you know, it's not next to the bakery, and it's not down the road from the bowling alley. It's just somewhere in this nebulous space, we have this sun space. And our sun is a star, and it has a name, and that name is Sun. Hello, Sun. And we have come to another nebulous space, and this place is called Earth. And we found Earth because we found where Earth was not. And so what we're not exactly sure of at this point in this basic class is, was the Earth there first, or were the neighbors there first? And the neighbors being Venus and Mars. And so we say, well, we're not Venus and we're not Mars, so we're Earth. And so we created some boundaries so that we can define these nebulous points in this nebulous space. And we had a sentimentality towards this Earth. And so this is our little pie in the sky. And when we look at all the Earth space details that we have all these elements, and there are even more pieces. And we set boundaries to define them as well. And because they're elements, that means they're at the lowest common denominator. And so we have important elements which we group together that we call hydrogen, carbon, nitrogen, and oxygen. Those constitute our amino acids. Or we have sodium, potassium, magnesium, and calcium. Those constitute a medium or an environment. And then we have copper, zinc, and iron, which constitute parts of the physicality of the Earth space. And ironically, they also constitute parts of our space, man space. And so we add one more component, the silicon, which is basically the major component of Earth space. And so we are part of that whole space. And so we're trying to find our position in this, but it's not very specific. And so we thought that, you know, we were coming to Earth and that we were going to be in a specific place on Earth, but that is not very specific. In fact, it doesn't even just go to what we see as the sky, but goes beyond the sky to what we see as the moon, because the moon is within the magnetical boundary of the Earth space. And so the moon has a space, and the Earth has a space, and we have a space, And where exactly is that space? And because we can't pinpoint it, and all of us are scattered all over the place, so each of us has arrived in our own nebulous space, somewhere in the sky, but on Earth space. And on this Earth space, each of us has a romance space. So there's a similarity here between the sun space, moon space, Earth space, and the man space. And it is that similarity that we want to draw attention to, because there is a reason that we've come here. And in the process of coming here, we don't know how we came here, but we claim to know how we want to leave. So the fact of the matter is that we came from somewhere, we're not exactly sure, but we know that we came here. So that's our manifestation point. And that manifestation point is at some nebulous point in this environment of our physicality. And it is because of this nebulous relationship that we have, this relationship in the sky, we have added problems because all of these are moving targets. And not only are they moving targets, but the targets themselves are changing their personality. So we have seasonal changes on this moving target. And so when we look at Earth in relationship to the sun, we find that in the summer we're on one side, and in the winter, well, we're on the other side. And so how do we all manage to hit the target? And so we find that we need more target practice. And I know we've moved ahead on the classes, but we've crossed that bridge of knowing, because that bridge of understanding has really helped us to do that. So I think we need to review some nebulous points. In earlier classes, we talked about dimension building. And so we made a point. And it's just a random point, right? It's a nebulous point. But when we added a second point, we started dimension building. And we did this by connecting 2 points. And we carried on, and we added a third and connected 2. And then we added a fourth and connected 3. And then we added a fifth and connected 4. I hope you're seeing a pattern. Because we added a sixth and we connected 5. And so this kind of forms our basic hexagon shape. And we see this manifested in the periodic table of elements. And so when we say periodic table of elements, that means singularity. And so when we group all these singulars together, we come up with a construct. And so when we look at all these non-specific nebulous points, and we look at how they went through the dimensions, we see the pattern. And then we see that we can reference these patterns to the kind of things that we've been experiencing in the plasma science. So within our man space, we've come to Earth space. And so somewhere on Earth space, each of us is there. And so we see the relationship to other energy levels, how they also fit in kind of nicely with respect to this pattern. And so there are other factors to take into consideration. So a second one would be the environment. A third one would be nanotechnology, then GANS technology, plasma technology, and then dynamic plasma. And then we can see another pattern forms as a derivative of this, because we are so concerned with our Earth and with our environment. And of course, the most important thing for us in our Earth and our environment is the earth body and our physical body. But there's another factor, and that's the emotional state. And of course, let's not forget that we also have the soul of the body and the soul of the man. And so all of these energy states follow the same principles with respect to plasma science, exchange of energy. These are all magnetical field forces of attraction and repulsion, which we call gravitational and magnetical field forces. And the magnetical forces are a feeding force, and the gravitational force are a feedback force. How can you feed back if you're not getting fed? And so this becomes the enigma of the creation of the universe. So we wonder, how is the universe created? And too many of us go through life without answering that question. And it's not necessarily because we didn't ask that question. We did, but when we didn't get the answer in the beginning, we kind of gave up asking because we couldn't find anybody who knew. And so we have someone who's figured out the answer to that. But now what's important is for us to also figure it out. And so what we see in book number 1, The Universal Order of Creation of Matters, is the bringing together of 3 different energy states. What we call the matter state, the dark matter, and the antimatter. And so this is all energy in motion. And so it brings it together into the singularity, but in the universe, all things are working in combination. And so if we have different energy levels, how does that work in different combinations? Because in our tiny little perfect world, the only energy level that we really understand is our physicality. But, you know, there is another factor. And so we find that in our body, we have a brain. And as we discussed last week, sometimes some people are disconnected. But the brain is physical and the body is physical. But there's something that is driving. So we have emotions. And we sometimes have to overrule our emotions mentally, but oftentimes we overrule our mental structures with emotional forces. And so we find that the GANS has the same type of affinity. And then as such, now we know that the GANS is part of our physical body. We see that the GANS is physical. And we know that we have a soul of the body. We must have a soul of the body, because where does all this emotion come from? So when we're looking at our positioning, we try and find this relationship between the sun and the earth. And so we see that the soul of the man and the soul of the body have a kind of relationship based on the size of the head and the size of the body. But the thing is that this is what we call an earthbound strength. So in other words, the physical size of the head and the physical size of the body have a relationship, but that's this earthbound strength based on earth space. If we look at the plasma field strength, we find that the universal soul of the man is much stronger than the universal soul of the body. And so we're still, grappling with the details of earth space. But one thing that we can see is that the relationship of the earth to the sun is similar to the relationship of the soul of the body to the soul of the man, is similar in the relationship to the man's universe and our sister universe. And do we have a sister universe? Well, if we understand the universal order of creation, we find that there's a progression and there's a link, and then there's a creation of the universe, and on it goes. And how does it go there when all we're concerned with is this little tiny red dot in the bottom right hand corner? And so we've created a boundary where we're satisfied with that. And literally, when we look at this whole picture, we see that we've really settled for crumbs. And all we're looking at really is the gravitational component, which actually is the core component of our existence, which we call the neutron, because the neutron has all of these fields. However, when we look at this fundamental principle of the twinity, we introduce the electron and the proton as well. And so this is the basis of the atom. And so we find that the plasma of the electron is dictated by the amount of the magnetic fields which are transferred from the larger twin plasma of the proton. So there's a relationship. And this is the product from the neutron. Well, then we find that the electron is composed of the same components as the neutron. And so we ran into a serious dilemma, because the electron, in effect, is a ray. And it's made the same way as the neutron. Well, if the ray is magnetical and the neutron is gravitational, I'm having difficulty seeing what the difference is. And so this is the problem when we connect two nebulous points together, because where's the difference? How can you tell which is which? And how can you, practice your target practice when you don't know which one's the target? And in this case, it's not even moving. It's a standing target. Of which one would you pick? And on what basis would you do that? And so we looked at the construction of the twin cups, and we know that there's a relationship there where we have one cup feeding and one cup feeding back, but not only, because it's a two-way street. So it's a magnetical gravitational feeding. And not only, it's a magnetical gravitational feedback, but not only, it's a gravitational magnetical feeding. And it's also a gravitational magnetical feedback. And how can you tell which one is which? They're just random points in the nebulous space. So one of the things that we can tell is that when we create a wave field, we want to determine the direction of flow and the strength of flow. So in the plasma rules, we find that the stronger feeds the weaker. So where we put the energy in, that must be stronger. And where the energy goes out, well, that must be weaker. However, there has to be a feedback. And so in fact, where the energy goes out and is weaker, that energy feeding back must be stronger. And as it progresses basically to where the strong energy came in, the feedback coming back must be weaker. It's a two-way street, right? So in a way, we could say, well, if it's a two-way street, is it a symmetric reflection? like a mirror. And so we start with a weak field and it extends and becomes a strong field. So does that mean the reflection would be a strong field coming in and being derived from a weak field? And so we find that all of life is a reflection. What we're seeing in our physicality is a reflection. So if we have green genes, they're every color except green. The colors you don't see are the colors that they emit. The colors you do see are the reflection. Why is that? Well, because the reflected colors are physical manifestations, and the emitted colors are plasmatic manifestations. And so we apply that to our knowledge. And so in this case, you see this giant dandelion that's 1 meter tall. I've never seen one before. Maybe it's to the average person is not amazing. Most dandelions are only like 3 or 4 fingers tall. So the symmetric reflection could be opposite. So where instead of the large fields coming together, we have the small fields coming together. That could be a possibility, couldn't it? But still, we're just in nebulous space. We have no reference here. We don't know if we're in the left one, in the right one. We don't know which strength we're going at. We don't know which direction we're going at. We don't even know if we're right side up or upside down. We're just some nebulous point. But what if we find that we have a gravitational neutron component at one point? Now we've got something. So what does that mean? Now we have an asymmetric relationship where we have a stronger field and a weaker field at the point of interaction. So in other words, on the left side, as the energy comes in, it creates a field that radiates out and becomes stronger and stronger, and then interacts with a smaller field and then gives to that one. And so we find that the larger field is gravitational, the smaller field is magnetical. The gravitational feeds to magnetical. And so that's what happens with the nuclear decay model of the Kesh model, where we have the neutron decaying into an atom that consists of an electron-proton combination. But part of the decay process is the release of PM ticks. That's what makes the difference between the mass of the neutron and the mass of the atom, the basic atom combination. So there's an asymmetric relationship. And so that's just between the two fields. But what about the release of the PM ticks? The PM ticks are looking for another relationship, right? They're going somewhere out into nebulous space. Like, where are they going? Right? And there they go. So we have a gravitational point of a PM tick, and it's going magnetically somewhere as a field force into some nebulous space. And so wherever it's going to is going to another gravitational field, is it not? Because that's the process of the decay. It's going to a lower field strength. So to review these reference points, we have ray creation, we have ray emission, and we have ray absorption. And all of this is done at light speed. We just didn't say which speed of light. And we didn't say which light. So the reference fields between these asymmetric relationships create another gravitational field at the top. So the stronger gives to the weaker, so the weaker is magnetical. And how it does this is through the PM-TIX release. So if we review and say the picture on the left is the gravitational neutron, and the picture on the right is the magnetic electron-proton combination, and then we have the PM-TIX in the middle, which were a created byproduct from the decay of the neutron, and that is giving magnetically to another field. But if that field is a creation, then that field is gravitational. How can a weaker magnetical field give to a stronger gravitational field? Not if it's in the same energy level. So when we're looking at connected points and not making any reference, we just say two nebulous points connected together, there has to be an asymmetric relationship where one is gravitational and the one is magnetical. And in order to make that work, there has to be a feedback. So we need a relationship. So if we look at one strong field, which is coming together from the creation of two fields, and say that becomes the gravitational field, then the release of the energy is a magnetical field. And that magnetical field is the product of the combination of two fields. But in relationship, despite the fact that both fields are created the same way, one field is at a higher energy level, one field is at a lower energy level. One field is gravitational, one field is magnetical. So now we have an asymmetric PM-TIX release structure. And if we look at the way the planets are created, the planet space has a reference to the sun space. And so that too becomes an asymmetric reference point. And so we see that within these fields, there's a soul. And if one field is gravitational, then that field strength is stronger. And if one field is magnetical, then that field is weaker. And the stronger feeds to the weaker. And so we know that because the sun feeds the earth. And so when the earth doesn't see the sun, then the sun is not feeding the earth. But that's also a fallacy because the sun is still feeding the earth. It's only on the other side. We can't see it. And just because we can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. Just wait 12 hours and it'll be back. It comes up every day. And thank God for that. But we are here We're not worried about discussing the sun and the earth and these other things. We want to discuss ourselves. And where are we? Well, we just happen to be at some nebulous point, and we are a gravitational man space. And so we're in our Earth space. We're not exactly sure where this Earth space is, but it's kind of referencing to the sun. And we're not exactly sure where the sun is. We're kind of referencing the solar system. And oh my God, I don't know where the solar system is because we have to reference something else. So we're in just some nebulous point. And the thing is that our man space is gravitational. The Earth space is gravitational. And the sun space is gravitational. And the connection exists between all three. That must be some other space. And so we find that energy is feeding throughout the universe, and it comes as a PM tick. And these PM ticks are all different. They all come together differently, which is what gives us the spice of life. And this is all the basics. Structure comes from the aminogens, which then manifest themselves into physicality. And so when we look at the basic understanding of fields, we determine the strength of the field. One way to do it in physicality is to look at the surface to volume ratios. And maybe that would give us a measurement, but we're unable to measure field strength in the plasma state. What we are able to do is to determine that 1 plus 1 is more than 2. So the 1 is a feeding dimension, and the other one is also a feeding dimension. But they're just nebulous feeding dimensions because I can't tell which one is the other one. But the answer is we're getting 3 feedback dimensions. And the reason for that is because we still have the 1 and the other one. So what we have is 1, the other one, and the product of the 2 together. And we are observing this. So we're none of those 3. You can't be part of it and then observe that. So we're into another dimension. And so if we're looking at how this works with our physicality, we have to understand that we also have an emotional aspect. And the emotional aspect really does affect our physicality. And our emotional aspect not only affects our body, but it affects our brain, which is also physical. And so the emotional aspect is a higher field strength than the physical aspect. And so it gives 2 feeding dimensions, both to our brain and our physicality. But we have to have feedback dimensions. And so we find that the brain feeds back to the emotion. And the body feeds back to the emotion. And the third one, where's the third one come from? Oh, the soul of the body is feeding the emotion as well. And so now we've introduced the soul of the body, but there's only one feeding to the soul of the body. Something's wrong here. Well, when we look at the physicality of the brain, 2 feeding dimensions, the soul of the body and the GANS emotion. And then we look at the physical body, two feeding dimensions, the soul of the body and the Gans emotion. Okay, well now that's working pretty good. So, but there's still something missing. And what's missing is that the soul of the body is getting the three feedback dimensions via the emotion. Because both the brain physicality and the body physicality are feeding the emotion non-physicality, and that is feeding the soul of the body, right? Together, collectively, as one. But it still doesn't add up. What we just discovered is that all we're doing here is positioning our inner space, and we're not taking enough into account. But all of this together is one field. This is one field. We're not even getting another feeding field. And so this is what happens when we look at one cup. We want one cup, but we put multiple elements in there: a zinc plate, a copper coil, and a nano-coated copper coil. And from that one cup, we get the two fields, the magnetical field and the gravitational field. And then what happens? Now we get CO2 GANs, calcium GANs, zinc GANs, copper GANs, amino acid GANs, and water GANs. All of that within the cup. Where did all of that come from? And it just came from some nebulous point, didn't it? To a nebulous point. And then we have another reference. We've introduced another cup of life. And so we have an emotional cup and a physical cup. And they have components in there as well. But there's an affinity for the emotional construct and an affinity for the physical construct. And then we introduce other cups. Now we have more references. Cup of the soul, and the cup of the earth, and the cup of the inertia. And what does that mean? When we take the cup of the soul, the cup of the emotion, and the cup of physicality, that is one reference field. And then we look at the cup of the earth, that's another reference field. And that's 1 plus 1. And what do we get? Well, we get another reference field, the cup of inertia. And what is that? That is the cup of the first two cups. Well, wait a second. We still have the first two cups. So not only is 1 and 1 more than 2, but now all of a sudden, at a minimum, 1 and 1 is at least 5. But not only, because these are all represented in physicality, in man space, within earth space. What about the inner space, which we can't see? And so now we got a better understanding of how the PM ticks are traveling through the universe. They are magnetical, and they are feeding. And they are feeding from a higher energy state to a lower energy state. And that lower energy state is a MAGRAV condition, which we call gravitational. And because it is gravitational and is being fed, it will feed back. So the PM ticks feeding is to this MAGRAV, which consists of principal matter, transition matter, and convergence matter. So all of this is a form of conversion into a plasmagen MAGRAV condition. But not only, because it has to have a reference. And so it does have a reference to the earth space. And we know that because there's a field interaction between the man space and the earth space, which we call inertia. And so when we look at the basic plasma feeding rule, where the higher strength field feeds the weaker strength, This is the basis. When two forces come together in terms of universal harvesting, this leads to self-enhancement, where you came as a baby and you grew into an adult. And you look at the way society is conducted, and we have loose harvesting, where people are involved in stealing energy from others. And as a result, they steal energy from themselves. And so that becomes a self-consuming practice. And so we look at life as an illusion because we're having difficulty understanding what is shining and what is gold. We don't even know if this is a landing point or a launch point. And we don't know which field to reference to because we're only making nebulous references. And nebulous references to nebulous fields in a nebulous space. And how can we do that when we're not peaceful? So when two forces come together, is it destruction or is it creation? So we find destruction is another form of creation. Question is, what kind of creation are you creating? And is it a shining example? Is it something that we should be proud of? Or is it something that is energy binding, where we take energy at the expense of others? And so we look at the conflict on this planet and we see that there's the higher strength eats the weaker strength. So this becomes a point of conflict. And of course, none of us want to be eaten. So that's not us, you know. So the conflict point is not us. How can you have a conflict point without conflict fields? So if your conflict point is not you, then the conflict field has to be you. And so we see that the plasma rules, there's an energy exchange, and it goes through different levels. And each of these levels is at a different order of magnitude in terms of field strength. So this is where we have a higher energy strength to be able to feed to a lower energy strength. And when we increase our energy strength, we call it natural creation. But when we decrease our energy strength, we call it natural decay. But when we look at the suns in the universe, in the sun space, we can see that energy transfer can be catalytic or non-consuming. And so this is one of the reasons that our little tiny perfect world is our limitation. Because when we look into the energy states of the higher plasma states, the transfer rates are much higher by many orders of magnitude. And so to maintain these energy fields, there's a barrier in these fields. But these barriers are not limitations. These barriers are differentiation barriers so that you know which field is which field and which field absorbs which field. And there's an overriding rule, and that is the ethos of the universe. So when we look at the manifestation and what it means, is that the plasma feeding leads to this manifestation. And this manifestation can be non-tangible or tangible, non-visible or visible. So when we look at our physical reality, obviously that is physical. But the emotion of presence is not physical. And the emotion of presence is very much a part of our manifestation point. And so it too is part of the physical reality, but it's also part of the plasmatic reality. And so we have to take into consideration the plasmatic reality with respect to our physical reality, because there's no guarantee that we have a physical reality. There's always a guarantee that we have a plasmatic reality. There's always a plasmatic matter state. And then we have the option of having a physical matter state. And all of us have exercised that option of being in the physicality in this earth space we call earth space, that we should call it heaven. And the reason we can't call it heaven is because we really don't understand our inner space. You see, our inner space is part of the planet space, and it's part of the man space. And so the thing about when we're looking at the different planets, we have to make some choices. And so when we look at the relationships, we find that Mars to the sun is like an electron to a proton relationship in terms of field strength. When we look at the Earth to the sun, it is likewise an electron-proton field relationship. And then when we look at man space, whether it be in relationship to Mars or to the Earth or to the sun, man space is like an electron, and all of these others are possibly a proton. But we picked Earth space. And so we find that these fields are all overlapping. How did we get here? Where did we come from? We made it to Earth space, but you know, where did we come from? Some nebulous space from somewhere. And where's the connection? And so we see that we are gravitationally attracted to Earth, but we find that even the Earth's crust is transparent. And when we look to the sky, we could see through the sky. And at night, we can see beyond. So there's a physical reality and there's a plasmatic reality. And it's not understanding how we transmute through these vanishing points. It's this elusive vanishing point that we seek our confirmation. And our confirmation is firmly implanted in this nebulous space we call no man's land. And we are grounded there because of our limitations of our souls. And so how do we do this if we don't even understand where we are? And wherever we are, we're in between somewhere, aren't we? Because we're just on a lily pad, and this lily pad is somewhere in between, and somewhere where we can't even see. And so we have the evidence of what we can see, and we have the evidence of the absence of evidence. But we see that we are having a relationship as the planets rotate around the sun as satellites. The moon rotates around the Earth as a satellite. The satellites orbit around the Earth as satellites. So we are actually biosphere satellites. What else is out there in that nebulous space? I wonder. So all we see is our nebulous sun space. And at night, we see our nebulous solar system space. And when we look at our physicality and we look at the GANTs in the bottle is glass and it's transparent. We can see the GANTs inside. It's kind of solid, at least we can see it, but there's a hole in the GANTs. And something in there we can't pinpoint. We can't pinpoint because it's at some nebulous point inside there. And where exactly is that? So everything that we're looking at here, despite the fact that it's transparent, is a feedback of a feeding. And that feeding is also a feedback. So the feedback is a feeding byproduct. And so we find that the ray motion creation goes in both ways. It's a two-way street. And so we call, if there's natural creation, there has to be a natural decay. And if there's a natural decay, there has to be a natural decay, creation and a natural decay. And if there's a natural decay on one side and a natural decay on the other side, well, there has to be a bond between the two, which we can't see. This nebulous reference in this nebulous space in between these two creations. And we see this when we see the double rainbow. We can clearly see that inside the rainbow, we have certain colors, and within the outside part of the rainbow, of the second rainbow, we see certain colors. But in the middle, in that nebulous field in the middle, that nebulous space in there, this is where our peace dome is, and there aren't any colors in there because it is non-visible and non-tangible. So when we look at our soul, it's a feeding radiance of our inner space. And when we look at a physicality, it's a feedback radiance into our physical manifestation. So when two fields come together, magnetical gravitational fields, those are manifestations, and it can be a plasmatic manifestation or a physical manifestation. So this is the basics of the dynamic plasma interaction and how the dynamic plasma follows these boundaries. But this is in singularity. So we find that there's a covalent bond. There are two bonds. There's two bonds between the physical spectrum and the plasmatic spectrum. And we know that because we see the rotating hemispheres of the Earth. There's a north space and a south space, and there's a connection at the Earth space we call the equator. And we're kind of stuck in between here on this planet, and we're trying to figure it out. And so we're not exactly sure when we go into our space room, if this is a launch pad or a landing pad. Because if we were born, then the launch pad would be the second half of the trip. But if we are going somewhere, then that would be the first half of the trip, wouldn't it? And then hopefully we would return back. So this is why we are trying to figure out how these paths cross over. And so we've introduced the space enhancement units that help us to cross over from the physicality to the plasmatic reality and back again. And so we see that there is a connection. And what we found in the flight simulation is that there's a connection to our inner space. And if it's our inner space and we want to return back to nature, then we have a dissatisfaction with our physicality. And there's a reason for that, and that has to do with the energy binding. So we find that the inner space has a greater tendency to go back to the binding, back to nature. Our inner space has a better connection to nature because there's no going back to nature. We are nature. We are nature. Our soul, that's our essential. That's our essential you. And this essential you is an interaction of two fields, the plasmagen state and the mattergen state, both of which are plasmatic. And the soul of the body, well, that's a surrogate you. That is an interaction between the plasmagen state and the environment state, which is a manifestation of the small m physical matter state. And so when we look at the soul sequencing and we see what it says, the soul of the sun plus the soul of the earth attracts the soul of the man. Now we have a convergence. And so with the soul of the man interacting with the soul of the earth, that attracts the soul of the body. Well, that's good. Now we know where the inner space of our body is. And we know that because the soul of the body and the soul of the earth manifest the physicality of the body at some nebulous point in this earth space. Each of us are born in our own different space. So we find that there has to be a relationship because all we talk about is our physicality. And we need to stop talking about our physicality because that's the lowest energy state. So it's the soul of the body that feeds the physicality. So that's one. The earth has a soul. The earth has a physicality. So it's the soul of the body that interacts with the soul of the earth to manifest the physicality of the body. The soul of the body does not have enough energy to manifest the physicality of the earth body. The soul of the body has enough energy to manifest the physicality of the body. So the soul of the body is one. The soul of the earth body is one. And the physicality of the body is the combination of the first two. But it's worth more than two because you still have the soul of the body and you still have the soul of the earth body. So now what we're describing is inner space. And inner space has to follow the ethos of the universe. And so we find that the inner space is part of the energy that is required to transcend the limitations of nuclear science. Because the universe is a peaceful place. And it is a peaceful place because it's the essence of creation. And so if you're creating, you're following the rules of morality, compassion, and courage, but not only. It's all part of creation. And so what's in the universe is also in our earth space. And so we are governed and identified by our neighbors. And so we end up becoming a feedback of another feedback. And when we keep feeding garbage and say, well, that's not my garbage, then we become a product of our garbage because we just can't throw it away. And so our pursuit of happiness actually becomes a failure. And we come to the realization that man has never launched a rocket into outer space because our Earth space is in deep trouble. We have forgotten to take care of the ecology of our Earth space. And the number one rule is that there's no economy without ecology. And so when we're defining plasma and someone is new and they're asking, what is plasma? Just tell them it's a kind of energy state. It's part of our Earth space, and it helps us find our inner space, which is peaceful. And that's important. And if that's not important, then really nothing else is important. And then we find that the feeding of this inner space is interacted with the emotional energy manifestation. And so the feeding is determined by the emotional feedback, which is another feedback. And so the vision enhancement units help us to deal with this inner space emotion energy manifestation. It defaults us to our point of refuge, our point of peace, and our point of creation, because it involves soul enhancement or spirit enhancement. And so when we look at whether it's materialization or dematerialization, you have to understand that materialization specifically refers to physicality. Manifestation also refers to the physicality, but it also refers to the inner space. And therefore, it also refers to the outer space. So all of these relationships are overlapping. And so we have one side, a scientific community, and on the other side, we have a spiritual scientific community. And the two need to come together. And that 1 + 1 is more than 2, because the plasma science adds to the knowledge. And the only question really is at what rate of change. So if we are, moving ahead through coexistence, or are we moving ahead through adversarial means? Well, we're never going to leave our Earth space if we don't have peace in our inner space, because that's where the science meets the soul of man for peace. So when we talk about getting back to nature, getting back to normal, we have to understand that our biosphere of peace, which is our inner space of Earth space, is in existential crisis, because we need to default to the harvest of the plasma energy from the plasma universe. And we do this by creating a dome. This peace dome is the inner space dome. And so we find that all things have a magnetical overlapping and a gravitational overlapping. The only thing that changes is the susceptibility. How do we unlock these gateways? So we have to consider the emotional manifestation, and we have to have peace with our inner space, but not just of our man space and our physical body, but the earth space and the earth body. And so the debate continues between peace and prosperity and war and poverty. And thinking men do not entertain this debate, because we are not in the entertainment business. We're trying to transcend the nebulous points of man-made laws and understand the universal role of man. And so we look at more advancements coming with the vertical enhancement and the horizontal enhancement units, because this is the need. We have no proof of outer space, and we're never going to go into outer space until we resolve these issues. And we know that. We already have the proof. because we have a preference and sentimentality for the Earth. We weren't born on Mars, and we were born. And we were born using a certain system. And we were born into inner space because it's the inner space which targeted the Earth space. And so we still don't know which part of this round trip is our Earth space. Is our Earth space just the midpoint, or is our Earth space the launch point? And we can't go into outer space if we don't have peace on Earth. And how can we have peace on Earth if we don't have peace in our inner space? So we are constantly pursuing our problems. And in the absence of solutions and the absence of evidence, all we have are our Earth space problems. So we need to have an inner space awareness. It's only then that we can overcome the problems, not only on the Earth space, but outer space. Until we do that, there is no outer space. We're just at some nebulous point in some nebulous place, in some nebulous space, and we're not alone. We have vertical people in their vertical people space who share our Earth space. And then there are bumblebees, and they have their own bee space, and they share that space as well. So, you know, we have to understand that sometimes when the gas is leaking, it's just a fresh derriere of the farmer's plasma fields. We have to cross this inner space peace bridge because we are inherently peaceful. And where we start, that's not us. And where we end, that's not us. It's who we are. And all of us are part of this journey for science to meet the soul of man for the purpose of peace. We are in the post-June the 6th timeline, which means now we have choices. We have choices with respect to how we view Earth space and how we view inner space. And as this is the last of the basic inner space classes, we understand that we now have defined a place, a nebulous space. And from that space, we can go into outer space. This is the Keshe Foundation, Spaceship Institute of Teachings and Plasma Science. We're calling all Earth space patriots. There's a World Peace Treaty. Sign it. Sign it with a pen. Sign it with your soul. The Earth has life that is free from boundaries because the plasma science of life has no limitations. We're looking for the earthbound physical and emotional atmospheric transformation. This will allow us to transmute from the transparency point to the manifestation point, wherever that choice leads us. And beyond that nebulous point of the nebulous universe, that universal inner space of freedom, the universal refugium of the nebulous life of the universal community. This inner space is what transcends man-made boundaries of thought. The plasma science still needs to be delivered in exchange for peace on Earth. So welcome to the outer space age. That's the end of this lesson, and it's also the end of the basic inner space series. Thank you all so much for allowing me to present. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you, Alex, for presenting. We don't know what we would do if you weren't here. Well, I'm sure we'd find something. While we're gathering our questions, just wondering again, if anyone's here for the first time. I see a name. There were actually two names that I didn't recognize. I think the other party left. But there's someone named Chakib. I'm not sure if I'm saying that properly, but are you new to this meeting? I don't recognize your name unless you're coming under a different cover. Would you like to tell us who you are and where you're from? Perhaps? I was thinking you might be from Turkey, because I noticed the IB at the end of your name, and we have Galib, who also has this IB at the end of the name. Maybe Galib invited Chekib, if I'm even saying it right. Well, we welcome
Well,
you.
for the record, my
Yes.
name is an Arabic name, so our friend might be Arabic.
Okay. Thank you for telling us that. Okay, they may not be near their mic right now. Okay, I think Alex has warmed his tea up. But we do know, Alex, that there are probably no nebulous places. I mean, they're nebulous to us because we can't see. Our lack of knowledge is not quite there, but there's no place devoid of magnetic gravitational fields in the universe, I don't think. It's just us, like if I was a fisherman or a child and the child looks in the pond and he doesn't see any turtles or little fish swimming by the shore or any fish jumping, he may say, gee, this pond looks empty to me. But as we all know, there's life teeming in there, even if we can't see it along the shoreline or it's emerging from the surface. So the whole universe is that way. And can we say the soul is in the universe, but the universe is also in the soul? Maybe this is what we're trying to discover in a way, because it seems like these places of going to places are instantaneously connected. Or maybe, again, the universal community seems to be traveling with craft, but that's because of the matter state. Once we go into the energy state, it's all seems to be tightly connected, or instantaneous ability to move, and life is everywhere in every square meter, or even smaller.
So there are 2 points, and let's say you're on a ship, so whether it's say on the water or in space or in the air, and someone asks you, well, where you're going, and frankly, you say, well, you know what, I'm just following the pilot. But another way to determine that, of course, is to look at your ticket. And the reason you want to look at your ticket is because you don't want to really carry the baggage of having to remember where you're going, because now you have a ticket so you can look at that. And that's handy, isn't it? But on Earth, we don't have a ticket. And so if I ask you where you're going, and you say, well, I don't have a ticket, and you know what, I can't even remember. And then that's kind of where we're at. We can't remember before we were born, because somewhere along the way we lost our ticket, right? So when we were born, the ticket didn't come with us, but we came here for a reason. And the thing is, we came as a child. And so that's one thing. And then we grew into an adult, and we want to leave this planet as an adult. So that's a second thing. But interestingly enough, there's a large part of the universal community that either can't or doesn't want to interact with us in our physicality. And so we're not going to make a comment on whether or not we can blame them. Like, I mean, who wants to come to Hooliganville? But, the thing is that we now have to consider that they also have a limitation on this technology. And it's only because they're unknown to us, and they seem to have this advanced capability of transportation, that we defer our status to their superiority, which is a violation of universal law, because there is no superiority. There is added knowledge, but there's no added superiority as a respect to that, unless you come into a lower energy state. And so on Earth space, we can do this because we have a delay in consequences. And one of those delays and consequences is not to go into outer space, but to pretend. And so it doesn't take a genius to figure out that we were born without a rocket. And so to go into outer space with a rocket means we're not going into outer space. We're still staying in the physicality. Outer space and the physicality are not the same space. So wherever we are going is really undefined, undifferentiated, some nebulous space. That's why I talk about that today. But we have the capability to make choices. And as a baby, we did make that choice. That first choice was to be born on Earth space. The second choice we made was to be born to that set of parents. And the third choice we made was the set of circumstances that we have. But it is from there that we grew up into adults. Okay, so why do we keep playing with matches? Adults are in the building, and being an adult implies additional maturity. So adults who act like children are immature adults. So adulthood alone is not enough. Mature adulthood is where we want to go. And so just to answer your question on that point, that's what I would like to say. The maturity that we will derive to go into outer space is not only going to be welcomed by the inhabitants of Earth space, but also the inhabitants of the universal community, because we are missing at the council table. Over to you, Mark.
Lissy says in the chat, thank you so much to all again. Alex. Claudia says, thank you, Alex. Diane says, thank you, Alex, for another awesome sharing teaching. And Adrian says, Alex is phenomenon. Very nice. Thank you, Adrian, and to everyone else.
Thank you for your
Mr.
comments.
Kesh, yeah, he did say, though, we're going to develop the UFOs, I think. I'm not sure. Some people may not want to go into space or to travel on this planet in the dimension of energy, which he said was the ultimate way of doing it, but we have to provide for everyone. Some people may not want to hover or the way he described it and so on, and the universal community has been obviously operating, most of them probably in some sort of matter state with the craft and the different types of craft and different civilizations. So the only problem, again, with the matter state is the system failures as I see it. And that could be big, and there could be a large loss of life in that way, but perhaps we'll be taught in a way to enjoy both ways of traveling in space. Any thoughts on that, Alex?
Certainly. And I brought that up a few weeks ago. What a powerful question you asked there. So this is where we're at. You know, we are looking at this universal refugium, and then the reason for it is because if you look at conflict, what makes conflict is when two conflicting fields come together. So if one conflicting field comes and the other one doesn't show up, then there's no conflict. And the universal community operates this way. And the reason they operate this way is because there's no prosperity in the conflict. That's not how creation is created. So if they encounter the possibility of conflict, they withdraw to a place of refuge. And the byproduct of that maneuver is that person who is initiating the conflict is going to end up being very lonely. So, if the purpose of the conflict is to eliminate the enemies, and if you're successful, then you have no more enemies. And so now you have a conflict point that is being starved. And so you have these withdrawal symptoms. And so the idea or the notion that we can eliminate the majority of the population on this planet and live in peace is ludicrous. It's never proven. In fact, it's never proven successful. It's always proven to create more conflict. And when we look at the history and we see empires and we see how successful they are, and in order to maintain their success, we find that they were born from conflict. And then in the process of eliminating the enemies, they seek the peace. But then they find that they have a conflict within. And so the enemy is within. And it's a simple reason for that, because the understanding of how the universe works has never been ratified. The universe operates in a peaceful manner. And so the universe will not engage in that conflict. And it's not a matter of bravery or chicken-heartedness. It's a matter of, this is how the universe works. And until we learn that lesson, we can't engage. So what we've done is actually fooled ourselves into a kind of illusion. And, we fight in the name of honor. And I don't know exactly what that is. Talk about a nebulous concept. The destruction serves no purpose, because all that does is it shifts the blame. And in the process, it also shifts the responsibility. And so this becomes the real conflict point with respect to the universe. The universe has an awareness, and as a byproduct of that awareness, it assumes a responsibility. And I think in the Western society, and let's talk about Canada and US, shirking responsibility has been part of our upbringing. The concept of not being involved. And so how do we overcome that concept of not being involved? So we tug at the emotions and we say, well, support this sports team. And then you say, well, support this war team. Support this country. And so we become irrational. And we also have our choices taken away from us, because all of these decisions are done on the field of physicality. When we start to engage our inner space, we start to engage the plasma reality. but not only. So the universal community is far more skillful at manipulating their inner space. But because we are also part of the process, we in fact impose those limitations on them. So we have come to an existential crisis. And the physical space being a manifestation, weaker field of the inner space, being a manifestation of a stronger field, is how we can do this. And so what we've discovered with the plasma science is that we can increase the field strength and decrease the field strength, and we have the choices. And so this is where the fun begins. And, you know, if you're given a choice between, you know, misery and hardship and fun, and you don't pick fun, you've got problems.
Well, Stephanie says, I just come in, but I'm sure that Alex's teaching was wonderful. I will look it up later. And Stefania just came in as well.
Yes, I will attest to the fact that it was wonderful.
We heard President Gorbachev learn to walk away from conflict. And that's what Mr. Kesh was talking about. And also Christ, he was not about any sort of roughness. I think he would also avoid conflicts and walk away. Or even if people didn't believe in him, he would walk away or believe in his abilities.
So, you know, there's a inherent problem with that, right? And so it doesn't solve the immediate problem. But it does have a long-term problem, and that has to do with the energy binding. And so when you weigh the strength of the current problem versus the strength of the long-term problem, then, you know, you start to make different decisions. And so we need to be farsighted. And the farsighted aspect of it is that we all came in peace, and we all want to leave in peace. But why would we come to a warmongering state? That has to do with responsibility and intent. And along with that, once we understand that and we're aware of that, then we can build on that. And so we waited long enough. We've waited long enough. June the 6th came and left. And it wasn't a surprise. Plenty of forewarning.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Would someone like to open something up? Another question, perhaps, or add to the knowledge? How about these emotions, Alex? We talk about the physicality, the soul of physicality having emotion. And then Mr. Kesh said at one point that the soul is even a bigger bundle of emotions than the physicality is. So there must be a tremendous amount of emotions within the soul itself. And I know that's energy in motion. So what are your thoughts on the different angles on this emotion, or strengths of emotion, perhaps, or maybe even emotions we're not even aware of within the soul?
Well, I think we all are seeking to satisfy our physical emotions. We get a lot of pleasure from that. And sometimes, sometimes we get a pleasure from that by denying others that pleasure, which is a kind of a perverted enjoyment. And the key word is enjoyment. So if an emotion does not carry this enjoyment factor, then I would say that's a kind of a misguided emotion. The universal community is not interested in engaging in, you know, unhappy emotions. And, you know, the long and the short of it is really this. And the majority of us work for a paycheck. And at the end of the week, when you get your paycheck and you look at it and you say, everything that I've done all week and all I get is money, are you satisfied with that? And that's you as a worker bee, if you will. Okay. Now you're a soldier of fortune and you're paid to do someone else's bidding, someone else's dirty work. And at the end of the day, you see the money come in and you say, my God, look how much money I'm making compared to what those, you know, worker bees are making. And then when you come home, you have money and the worker bees have money. And when you spend that money is gone. And what you're left with is a memory. And even if you don't spend the money, you still have the memory. And that memory affects your emotion. And the thing is that even though to perform the physical acts of violation of universal laws, you suppress your emotion, you can't, because of the ultimate connection. The way you were born was through a connection, and the way you perform is through a connection. And so we have an opportunity to make some choices, but those choices are afforded by a higher field strength, which you cannot deny in any shape or fashion. And at some point in time, as difficult as it is for the average person to understand, and you have to see it. You have to see it when a soldier comes in your presence and cries like a baby. And you say, you know, you shake his hand and you say, my God, his hand is as big as a bear paw, and he's as strong as an ox, and he's probably been skilled in the art of killing that I can't imagine. And there he is, crying like a baby in my presence, because he's a patriot. And as a patriot, he was defender of his inalienable rights as a human. And he didn't sign up to murder women and children. And so, as a patriot, he was put in a position where he had to violate the universal laws of life, which he never agreed to. And you know that he agreed to it because he was born. You cannot be born without agreeing to the universal laws of life. Back to you, Mark.
Right, I think if all the money is going to the power companies and there's nothing left for the family and me, I don't think people are going to be highly motivated to work. We're seeing this in Italy and Europe going on right now. So Myrna says greed and power was one strong element for warmongering. Yes, we've had 5,000 conflicts in the last 3,000 years. Lissy says, Alex, what is the whole concept of satellite souls? We covered that a bit in the beginning. Maybe you'd like to expound on that, Alex? These satellite souls, this testing that's coming up. We talked about it being an extension of Linz. We talked about it being sort of a rescue system for refugees, soul refugees perhaps, and then they could possibly manifest in another place on the planet if they wanted to. But would you like to give us your concept or whole concept of the satellite soul testing?
This is a very good question. And, we have satellites that rotate around the Earth. And the thing is that they are part of the Earth space. And we rotate with the Earth. And say, so what is the difference? Well, the difference is that the satellites are in more of the magnetic field strength of the Earth space, and we are more in the gravitational field strength of the Earth space. We are on that area that is above the crust. We are in the atmospheric space. Okay. Get rid of that. So we have our own inner space. Earth has an inner space. So we have a relationship with that space, and we have decided to dance with that space. So we are in fact capable of making individual decisions, but we always have to take into consideration the decision of the Earth. We find that if we don't take that into consideration, then our existence becomes very uncomfortable. So again, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to figure out that if we take care of Earth space, it'll take care of us. Every, what do you call it? Tradesman knows. You take care of your tools take care of you. So, we are capable of doing things on this planet that the vertical space people can't do. And we are capable of doing things that the horizontal people can't do. And what is that purpose? So we tend to answer those questions not by what we don't know, by what we do know. And what we do know is that Earth space does not need people creating havoc in the Earth space. It doesn't need that. What it needs is peace and prosperity and harmony. And not only does Earth space need that for Earth space's sake, but Earth space is part of planet space. And then by extension, it extends to the universal community. And so we belong to that as well. And just because we can't see the benefit that they would get, doesn't mean that they wouldn't get the benefit. It's not for us to decide where the energy goes. It's for us to decide to provide that energy. It's for the receiver to decide, will they absorb or will they repel? In other words, that plasma energy, will they absorb that plasma energy or will they create a barrier? Because they make choices as well. So we cannot usurp their choice. They make their choice, we make our choice. And to inflict our choice on someone else is a violation of universal laws. Okay, so that's fine. So now I'll give you another example. My mother used to be an accountant for a very large department store in Canada. And this department store was one of the oldest stores in Canada. And this department store is gone. And her responsibility was to work on the profit. And a funny thing happened. And she was explaining to me when I was much younger. She had an argument with the other bosses because her forecast for the upcoming economic quarter was profitable. And they looked at the economic prospect and they didn't see it. They saw that they were going to lose money. And the argument was, why, Monsieur there, you are scratching on the screen. So the point is that this was an economic forecast and they were forecasting a loss. And my mother just said simply, if you're forecasting a loss, then you shouldn't be in business. You don't forecast ruination. If you see the ruination, you create an action plan to overcome that, to convert that into a profit. And so her forecast was based on an action plan. It also extends to prophecies. Prophecies assume one thing, that there is no alteration in the path of the prophecy. So as satellites on this planet, we are in the process of altering these prophecies because there was another prophecy, and that was to bring peace into heaven, and we are in heaven. Thank you for your question.
Yeah, she also has a follow-up, but I think the souls, the satellite souls, will be receivers and sort of forwarding devices in a way, perhaps for the universal community as well. Lizzie says, can we? Oh, okay. Can we think that these satellite souls are the support point for the work of the Universal Council? Alex?
Okay, again, you're placing a limitation. You know, you're trying to identify what is me and what is not me. The thing is that the actions that we do transcend the obvious immediate periphery, because what we're doing, let's say for instance, we're conducting this meeting. So in many ways, let's say this meeting is physical. So I'm talking in a physicality, you're listening in a physicality, but there's also communication going on a soul level. So this is, you know, via the inner space. Once we get into that inner space, that is of a higher energy state. And the limitations of that are not the same as it is in terms of physicality. So my physicality is restricted to my position. The inner space is not. And so the way I answered your question was not to assume what the functionality is of the satellite, because there's some satellites, for instance, that just reflect, some satellites that interconnect, and some satellites that link up with other satellites, to kind of create another field force. So I don't want to assume or presume what the satellite will do. And I don't want to presume and assume what you will do. The thing is that you can't sit there like you sit on a throne and say, well, this is what I'm going to do. Your intention is yours. This is the real you. So it isn't something that you can just fabricate. Let's put it another way, in a simple phrase. The plasma science is a way of life. And life is 24/7. Thank you for your question.
As he said, there's so many universal systems built into the new developments that we're not even aware of it, the capabilities of it. And as he said, in the man's future vision, we don't need the satellites. Now, maybe they're still there, but we don't need them for our work, perhaps, even though we're using them today, I would imagine, through these Zoom calls and all the rest of it, that we're using satellites right now. But the satellite system that the foundation is setting up is totally on a plasmatic level, and then perhaps even manifesting or the transmutation coming through there as well. But again, that's up to the actual individual, he said. We could transport you, but we cannot transmute you. You're going to have to learn this transmutation.
Yeah, so it's just like the GPS satellites up there. If I want to check the GPS, then I have to, access it via some software. But because that GPS is there, doesn't mean that I'm accessing it. So I still have to tune in. And the most banal of all things, if you remember, or maybe you don't remember, but there was a time when radios were being invented, and what was interesting is that you could turn the dial to tune into that station. So that station didn't come on when you tuned into it. That station was on all the time. And so now we see that, these satellites, they're running all the time, and you just tune into that satellite. So if you want a GPS, you tune into that, or if you want energy, you tune into that. Well, in this day and age of Marvel and technology, we are faced with a very cold, harsh winter with a lack of energy. Fine, that's the condition. And is that your forecast? If that's your forecast, that's fine. Let's get the management team in there to alter that forecast. Oh, we're not doing that. Well, what exactly are we doing? And so what you have today is what you have is we deserve what we have. So things have to change. They will change regardless, whether we do it or not. Things are going to change. So prosperity is going to turn into hardship.
Would someone else like to come in at this point? Discuss something that Alex talked about, or something you're working on, or some of your thoughts, something you don't understand? That gives you a lot of room.
Hello, good evening, Alex. Thank you for the teaching a lot. And hello, Mark, as well, and everyone. This is Garib from Holland. And I wanted to mention something. It was as related to the question earlier. As maybe an interesting fact, I sometimes sit on the grass and I look at the sun, and this clears up the clouds for me to understand where I'm at exactly. But what I've noticed is when I'm in the underground, in the metro, this feeling of realizing the position of my magravs without clouds in my understanding of it. So in essence, being in the ultimate point of possibilities, like in the flight enhancement unit, it's easier to do when I'm underground, like in the metro. So I don't know if I still don't have an explanation for it myself, but the answers of before did get me thinking a bit about it. And maybe someone has something to add to it, or one of the other Mojans or the other knowledge seekers for an explanation.
So I would like to jump in on that, Caleb, because that's a very important thought, and that is that I think we understand that when we make the let's say the ZNO gas, and we add the water to it, and we use that water for drinking, we basically put the water to the GANs, and the energy is transferred from the GANs to the water. And then we take that medium and drink that. But what happens if we bathe in that? So let's say we take water and we take the GANS soap and we bathe in that. And we've had many testimonials talking about the benefit of that. And so now all of a sudden we have different points of view. The possibility of drinking the plasma water, or the possibility of bathing in the plasma water. And of course, the pioneer of this was Alex out of Nigeria, who actually built a beautiful pond to bathe in. And so I started to follow up on one of the things that Randy has done, and that is he had an enormous amount of GANs, and he decided to put that in the rivers around his place so that the plasma energy can flow through the river. I do a lot of that by throwing a lot of plasma water down the drains, and that helps with the rest of the community. But that's transferring the energy from the GANs to the water, and then the transferring from the water to us. The thing that combined that with what Randy did, and I put the GANs in the pond, and then I went and bathed in the pond. Wow, it's amazing. What happened, first of all, for me personally, it was a very peaceful experience because it, shall we say, reinforced the energy, revitalized the energy in my body. But not only that, but I look at the plants around the pond, and I'm 6 foot tall. That's 2 meters, let's say, and the plants are taller than me, like they're about 3 meters tall. And it's amazing because all this has happened within the last year. So we're talking about extremely rapid growth. And so I find that I benefit, the plants benefit. Well, what else? The earth must benefit. It is showing the product of the benefit. If the earth is benefiting, is that benefit transcending in other locations? Well, yes, it is. So now all of a sudden, when we're looking at what the plasma does, instead of looking within the one cup and saying what's in the one cup, look at the earth as a cup and see what that does. And as all the knowledge seekers, if we do the same thing and then they connect together, so the connection of all these cups is like connecting all the satellites. And if we can connect all those cups of satellites, and we can connect all the souls of satellites, and if we connect all the souls of satellites, and if they are going around through the biosphere, now we understand how we can create the peace dome. So it's not a question of can we do it? It's a question of field strength. And with these new products that we're coming out with, they contribute to the field strength of the planet, and they also contribute to the field strength of all the individual soul satellites that are on this planet. And the reason for that is very, very simple. All of this technology is being put forward for the purpose of peace. And that's how the universal community works. And when you have peace, then you can work on prosperity. And peace and prosperity brings harmony. So that's the game plan. And it's not rocket science. It's way of life. So thanks for your question, Caleb, and I'll open the floor up to anybody else, please.
Thank you for expanding on it, and also for the European measurements was very thoughtful of you.
Yes, I'm taller in metric than I am in avoirdupois.
Right, and at least at this point, Alex, with not shipping the units out physically, he's doing it plasmatically. For example, John's place could be connected directly to Linz. They don't need the units there or other people. This is what I'm seeing, at least at this point in time. That to get things started without any interruption or delays in shipping or anything like that, everything that goes on in the enhancement center could go on in these souls that are going to be making themselves available for the satellite program, at least for the time being.
Yes. So for the connection standpoint, the connectivity has already been done. But for the field strength portion of it, the schedule has been moved up. And then it's just a rate of change. That's really what we're looking at. So history teaches us many lessons, and one of those lessons was in the Industrial Revolution. And so what we have to realize is that in these type of technological revolutions, there's a lot of job loss. And job loss, has its associated dilemmas. So that's coming from a technological revolution standpoint, but that doesn't mean that there won't be job creation. In fact, quite the opposite. With the plasma science, there's going to be massive job creation. And so it's just the rate that we are looking at to find out how graceful we can do this. But now, if we're looking at what's going on in the European community, this is not very graceful. And the result is the same, where we're talking about job loss, and we're talking about hardship, and we're talking about weeks. Like, let's say, pick a date, end of October. And it is also subject to the weather. And so it's not to say that we can't drag this out, but in the meantime, there will be hardship. And so this is the thing that affects the rate. So can we mitigate this? And we can't do this alone because all we can do is provide. It's up to the others to accept. And so we've seen that some won't accept and some are in desperate need. And what we will find is that this communication on a physical basis will be transcended by the communication on the inner space basis. Because that's what we're dealing with. Not only does man space hurt, but earth space hurts. This is a worldwide phenomenon. So there is a tremendous feedback that's coming. And so we have a feedback to the feedback. And this becomes synergistic. So all we have to do is keep doing what we're doing, teach, learn, and teach some more, and really do good, think good, and act good, you know, and understand now that we have a responsibility that goes along with that. And we really have to act. We have to do whatever we can to create that. And that's one of the reasons all of us are here wasting our precious time attending this type of meeting, because we understand how important this is. And we are part of it. And we all have our role to play. And you know what? It's great. It's great to be a player. Those who are standing on the sidelines wondering, you know, where's the game and how do I get into the stadium and stuff like that? And by the way, who turned out the lights? We now have the capability, but we have to act responsibly, and we have to understand that we have to act like the last man standing, each of us individually, working together. Step by step, we get it done. Over to you.
Okay, anyone else would like to come in? Share something. I'm going to play at the end the one of the later videos that Claudia generated, I mean through her question that Lisa produced, how our souls become a star, which will be about 8 minutes long. So we have much to learn, but we've learned a bit so far, but not very much, I would say, in the universal order of things. We think we have, but we're still on our way. We're being brought along slowly, surely. And again, the universal, we're going to start working with new citizens, new entities in our lives at some point. I don't know how that's exactly going to manifest, if they'll be openly revealed, or yet they'll just reveal themselves where they feel safe and interact, and we can share some of that amongst ourselves. I don't know how it's all going to work out, but I know the rapid rollout of the technology will help these governments to walk away from war. This is the idea that the technology will be so intriguing, so interesting, so unbelievable that they'll see the folly of war and killing and so on.
This is another thing that I would like to just put on the table is, well, caused by two sayings. One of them is the new question, which I think is a bit of an ontological question. It's now, I think, sometimes I think, yes, we are going to other places now, and yes, they might come here. So as the last to join the Universal Council, or as the humanity, as we are, as the humans, what do we bring and what do we very humbly try to give in teaching to them. Sometimes I think and I wonder if everyone on this planet right now would be at this point of full flight, full motion, which is, I think, a reality that's so much around the corner that Sir Keshe has been trying to, in a way, prepare us in the last few teachings. He's like, this has huge implications, and I sometimes think, what does it mean, this new chapter for us? And then I just, well, the way I answered to myself, which is something very nice that I learned also from the Mojan teachings. Sometimes I'm not supposed to give the answer. Maybe if I try to fill in the answer, which to the question, which is what's next in this new era where we are in full entrance and exit of the deep space, maybe giving it an answer and in that way crystal or like carbonizing it is not the solution, or maybe it is. Well, regardless, I have been trying to see what happens if I do give it an answer and to share it. It's very, when you try to crystallize it or make it a thought, it's very hit or miss for me thus far in being able to continue to give. So, as far as I can say is it's a work in progress, and I don't think it's too much to do with planning and figuring it all out beforehand and then trying to do it. It
Well,
has to be from a point of emotion, of intention, of giving completely unconditionally, and then working along. But please expand, Alex.
no, certainly this is an important point you brought up because your emotion is going to give you the feedback that you need to tell you that you're on the right course. But how do you know where you're going if you don't know that that place exists and you don't even know how you're going to go there? Well, here's what you do know. You know it's something. And that may not sound like a lot. That's just, a nebulous idea. But you know it's something. It's not nothing. And so one of the best ways to think outside the box, because that's what we have to do, is you just put an answer. And it may be the most stupid answer that you could possibly come up with. And when you look at that, you say, oh my God, that's a lousy answer. What a bad answer. Who thought of that answer? And so that now gives you a reference point. And so any other answer that you give is, especially in that case, may be a better answer. And so as you start to go through the list of other alternative answers, your soul and the emotion of your soul will tell you whether or not that answer is a better answer. And so you get on this path, and this path is following a pattern. And that pattern teaches you what works and what doesn't work. And so this is what life is all about. It's about learning. And so the two things that really cause a problem in our lives, and one is the mistakes that we make and the regrets that we have as a result of those mistakes. So the point is, it's at the time that you make that decision, you have no regret. You only have the regret in the past tense. So you make a decision and you do something, and then you have a regret. Oh, I wish I could have done, better. Well, you would have done better if you'd have known. That's not where the problem lies, because through your own intent, you would want to do the best answer possible for what you do. So, let's say, for instance, I struggled with cancer in my family for 8 years. And for a while, I carried a regret. I regretted all the time that I spent worrying about that. I regretted all the money that I paid for that. But you know, in the end, I don't have any regret because cancer is not a worry in my family. And what really brought this home, and so I remember this point. Actually, I was in a phone booth. This is when we used to have phone booths, and so it was in a mall. There were multiple phones on the wall, and as I was talking to someone on the phone, and I was looking through the doors, the glass doors out into the parking lot, and I was watching this beautiful girl walking, and I was admiring her beauty and admiring how she was coming. And unbelievably, you know, it took several minutes, and she comes right next to the phone next to me. And I'm carrying on talking, and suddenly I hear her voice. And she's talking about an appointment with her doctor because she was afraid that she was going to have breast cancer. And the reason she was afraid to have breast cancer was because her mother had breast cancer. And she says, well, I'm only 21, but I want to figure out what I need to do so I don't get breast cancer. And you know, I apologize for eavesdropping on the conversation, but I mean, she's right beside me. What am I supposed to do? I can hear anyone who's talking. I can hear it. So I heard the conversation, and I thought to myself, she's young, she's beautiful. You know, I'm old, and I have all these regrets. And here she is. What's on her mind? On her mind was what was on my mind for the last 8 years. And I thought, you don't want to go there. And I wished that I could somehow communicate with her, but you know, that was not possible at that point in time. But the point is that I eliminated my regrets because my hardship taught me a lesson. And so I was grateful for that lesson. So that's my point of view. And then as a result, it changed the way I approach things in life and say, okay, I need to make a decision where I don't have any regrets. But there's a huge problem that goes along with that. And that is that I need to make a decision. And if I don't make a decision, I will have a huge regret. And so I'm done either way. So what I have to do is be more skillful at making decisions. And what I have to do is take the lessons that I've learned and apply them to the context that I was presented in at that point in time. So now, was I in control of everything up to that point? Well, obviously, I wasn't in control of this young woman walking across the parking lot. I wasn't in control of that, was I? I wasn't in control of her coming to the phone, was I? And I wasn't in control of her thoughts and emotions, especially with respect to all these illnesses. So the thing is that there is a collective soul that is working, and we are part of that. And so when we are looking at who we are and what we are, and when we define ourselves and put boundaries and say, this is me, this is not me, that's you, that's, you know, that's your problem. And yeah, if it's your problem, you need to deal with it. It's your dream, you need to interpret it. And if it's your life, you got to live it. But you know what? You came here for a reason. And when you look at life and you say, well, you know, I spent all my life watching soap operas. Is that what your life was for? Is that why you came here? And many of us live vicariously through soap operas. So maybe this is a good way that we can apply to our society until we find out that, wait a second, this is all part of our conditioning. And so we have a societal conditioning, man-made constructs, that don't follow universal constructs. And so I just come to the point. I used to watch movies 2-3 times a week. I haven't watched TV in 6 years. And you know, it's just, you change, okay? Because you learn from your mistakes. That's the purpose of mistakes. And so don't have regrets about that, but be more skillful. And so one of the ways that we can do that, forecast a mistake. Oh, you know what? We're going to have power failure in 1 month. Okay, so now you know what you need to do for the next month. And if you don't do anything, guess what? You're going to have a power failure. So this is how we guide our lives. And we need to be more skillful. That's what adults do. Thanks for your question.
Right, and we think we're in awe of the universal community, as we mentioned earlier, and we think they have everything to give us and we have nothing to give them. But what Mr. Ketch said, what we are experts in is operation in the matter state. And so why do these souls come here? To manifest in the physicality, to chew and to swallow, to smell a flower, to enjoy other things. So perhaps we'll be serving in that way as well. He said they would feel like royalty to be able to operate in the matter state. So this is quite foreign to them.
And they can breathe the fresh dairy air.
Yes. Again, I don't know everything about this, but it seems he did say we are experts in operating in the matter state, even though we're encouraged to detach from the matter state. So. Anyone else have a thought or something they'd like to share at this point?
I would like to find the response from Caleb if how he felt about those answers.
Well, especially about the part with the phone cabin. Well, two things pop to my mind. I'll go in content-wise first, which is as you say, we all came here for a reason, and I'm gonna say something not to instigate a specific response from you, and which is like she was either manifest in your reality to be able to tell the story right now to us, or for you to do something with that existence, either learn from it or whatever. That's up to you. I don't know, but what did pop to my mind directly, and you sort of went on talking about it, was about Doctor Who, which is a TV show, which sometimes I think about the Maghreb as a sort of a, which shouldn't be limiting when I say this, but when I try to explain it to a school friend or someone at university, I say it is sort of a TARDIS egg. If anyone knows what it is, basically just a time machine and a space machine, a spaceship, which is a TARDIS, and so that's what popped to my mind. And then you automatically already went on talking about series and movies, which the way I look at it, why does someone manifest or go on to attract that that physical part in their experience, which I see around me is it's a way to experience an emotion. I've noticed this with myself as well. When I feel like wanting to watch something, I want to experience a certain emotion which I'm not experiencing at the moment. Whereas there is so much more if I do not try to be in like a train which is on a track. If you try to play a movie and then you're in a certain bound emotional track. However, if you manage to be in that state of the neutron, which is infinite possibility, and from that state gather more love, there is a lot more to gain, which I've noticed. But yeah, this is something that you're learning and developing, and it's going on for me, and it's very insightful to hear your expansion on what I'm thinking about. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. So, Mark, this really only just demonstrates how little we know. If you know, if we feel that we know a lot, and especially about our physicality, we
Yeah,
don't
but I already
really.
know that, Alex.
No, I know, but I
How
mean,
little I know.
it's getting worse. I know even less.
The more he reveals, the more it creates this humbleness within us to say, wow, I couldn't even think the extension of Lintz would even be possible. We're thinking it of delivering units in the matter state and so on and so forth. And that may happen as well. As he said, there'll be vertical units scattered across this planet, but will they actually be in a matter state? As he's transforming the flight room to where there won't be anything there, you'll walk into the fields.
Okay, we're not alone in this. We're not the, you know, we're only one of the feeding dimensions. You understand? There's another feeding dimension. And so that creates a condition. And this is the feedback. This is what I'm talking about. So, you know, our inner space is well positioned, but we are in the physical space. So what we do know is that that physical space has a plasmatic substructure. So how's that plasmatic substructure, which inner space is part of, position itself? And can that change, and at what rate of change? And the answer is yes, and it can be done at different orders of magnitude in terms of rate. So that's what the new science is delivering. And what is bringing and affecting the rate of change is the urgency. And there definitely is an urgency. If we are part of the creation, and if we have a morality, compassion, and courage to do so, then we have to accept and acknowledge the urgency and act accordingly.
Yes, I think we'll be assisting in averting a disaster in Europe this winter. perhaps, depending on how things play out, but it doesn't seem like the gas is coming back on. And if they're selling the oil or gases to other countries and then they're marking them up and reselling them to Europe, that's no solution either. I mean, the prices will just, again, it won't be worth your time to go to work if all your funds go to energy, or even half go to energy. There'll be nothing left to live. So I think we're being put in this position on purpose, again, to accept the technology, not out of the love of it, but out of the fear of our own demise.
Just to give you an example of how things have changed, the cost to refuel an electric vehicle this week has surpassed that of an internal combustion vehicle. It kind of takes the whole initiative of desiring an electric vehicle.
Right. And now in California or other places, they're saying not to charge them in peak hours because there's too much demand. Other places, they're using your Nest thermostat to actually remotely lower your temperature or raise your temperature in the hotter parts so that there's less of a demand. So, yeah.
Well, there's one thing about California is they don't have to worry about freezing in the winter.
Well, Northern California, I think in the mountains and so on can be pretty, plenty of snow. But not Southern California, right? But again, without any energy, you know, older people succumb to more things. And again, with the drought conditions, the food, yeah, it's all coming together as I see it to look for a change. And it's already been presented to the government. So again, they're fully aware, even though the population is not.
Okay, so more than the physicality needs to be taken care of.
But we're taking care of the physicality as well, he said. It's not just on the soul level.
No, of course. But the inspiration on the soul level is of an order of magnitude stronger than on the physicality. Without that, the physicality is very, very low power. So, but yeah, that's where we're at right now. So, as I say, we're only part of the equation, and we act accordingly. So there is the other consideration to take into account, and that is the inner space of the Earth space. That has an effect as well, and it will. And you know, you have to remember that all of us have to kind of go to sleep at night and let our souls meander and engage other dimensions. So things can change in 12 hours.
All right. Would someone else like to bring something up that hasn't been discussed, or perhaps you'd have a follow-up question on something that was discussed?
Hello, Mark. Hello, Alex.
Hello, Claudia.
Hello.
I was thinking, because I was have a conversation yesterday with a friend about the emotions, and when Mark asked about emotions, I said for myself, oh my gosh, we are linked. But I'd like to speak about love. And I was thinking about love, and this is the feeling that's the most, I think, the most strong emotions that the human have. And I don't know if have difference, because all the emotions is in our RNA. So I don't know if the love have a strong field that's different in our RNA, in our body, that's connected easily to our soul. And you see that most people feel more easily the love than the others. And I don't know if you think about it, is because we always, my English, we always say emotions.
It's fine.
Generally.
Fine. Your English is fine.
We generally emotions. We not say that love is different than hate and passion. We all put together. But the love is strong, like Mr. Cash said, the love of Mitra. So the love, I think, is stronger. But I don't know if have some different thing in our human body that connect more than the other people. I don't know. I was thinking about it. If you want to say something about it, thank you very much.
I have some strong emotions to answer that question. So, first of all, energy is positive. And something is always something as opposed to something else. So there's no such thing as hate. You either give love or you don't give love. You cannot give hate. This is a key point to understand. So the giving of hate is a man-made construct. The universal construct is you give and take. So you can give love or you can take love. You cannot not give love or not take love. So you either give and absorb, or you don't give and you don't absorb. But you cannot give hate. So this becomes a very important point in understanding. Then the second point is that we never say which field strength. We never say which light speed. We don't say which soul. And we don't say which body. And in fact, according to this slide that I have here, we don't say which emotion. Because clearly, if our emotion is exclusively from the soul of the man, and the soul of the man is your best friend, will never ever violate you, will never cheat on you, will never hurt you, will always guide you, even through the most harsh physicality. But the soul of the body has a responsibility in the physicality. And as such, it also has an emotional strength. And that emotional strength can be geared in such a way to disconnect from the soul of the man. This is different from being detached. Being detached is to be detached from the physicality. Being disconnected is to being disconnected from the universe. So we are disconnected in two ways. One, we are personally disconnected through our society and through our conditioning. And we're also disconnected from the universal community because they are not interested in connecting until we adopt the peace process. This becomes an important point because the energy cannot travel in the case of, let's say, terrorism. Terrorism is the act of denying all the essentials. So providing all the essentials is the universal way, and we need to learn that. If we want to be part of the universal community, we have to learn the universal way. And if we insist on doing it man's way, well, guess what? We're going to stay in the tiny, perfect little universe. But maybe, and only maybe, and the reason for that is because being part of the universal community the universal community has an emotional attachment to us as well. It's a two-way street. And so it's been a dilemma. When do the children grow up to be adults? Well, there's a chronology. There's how many years it takes. But when do the immature become mature? This is a totally different thing. And so you can have a teenage child that's very mature, and you can have a senior citizen that's very immature. And so this is the problem. We all need to understand our purpose in life, and we need to understand that we have to, with responsibility, act better. And at that point, we start to build. And so you're absolutely right. You build that with love. So the soul of the body needs love. And so the, shall we say, the physical act of love can be construed on a selfish basis, or it can be done on a shared basis. And I think we all know the answer of which is better. But the love of the soul of the man starts to take more into account. And this is the thing. We are not demanding enough of more. We are settling for the lowest. So we have an opportunity, we have choices, and now we need to figure out how to take advantage of that, because that's our responsibility. And all of us are going through a lifestyle change. And I know how shocking it is, because I learned at the age of 40. And one of the things that upset me was that it took me 40 years to wake up. So it only took me a few seconds to realize that I'd been, pretty dumb for 40 years. And it's not to say that I don't make mistakes, because mistakes are a part of the learning experience. But the thing is, we go forward with love. Drop the hate, drop the baggage, drop the fear, and work as you would if you were part of the universal community. And then we create a welcoming. We welcome them, they'll welcome us. And that's how the universe works. So thank you for your thoughts on that. It's very profound, and I hope you can parlay that into teaching others, because you have positioned yourself in a most honored position, having already been a traveler. So you're ahead of me. Thank you, Claudia.
Thank you much. Thank you very much, Alex. Thank you.
We're already doing it, Alex, as Mr. Kesh said. Every night when you go to sleep, Myrna's was wondering how can she travel. He said, have you ever had a dream? Well, we're all experiencing it. It's just not consciously that we've learned to totally do it yet. But that's where we're moving to. And I remember hearing Mr. Kesh say about space, he said, there's no love in space. And I'm thinking, there's no love in space. This is where the creator lives. There must be endless amounts of love, but he said it's called giving. So that's the love, is the giving. And I think there'll be a lot of signs up, not help wanted, but there'll be probably servers wanted, or maybe we'll already know to serve. This is when the elevation of the soul comes in whatever position you find yourself in, or wherever there's a need, you'll serve. But I was shocked to hear Mr. Kesh that there's no love in space. Maybe not the kind of love I was thinking of, or something along that line. But he said it's called giving. Anyone else? Yes, go
If
ahead.
I could just expand on that, Mark. So the love becomes magnetical. The giving is magnetical. The giving is the electron part of the electron-proton combination. And the giving is first. The giving needs to be replaced. The giving creates a gravitational field strength. And so the moment you give is the moment you receive. It's instantaneous. That's the key. See, it's a really difficult concept, especially when you're, you know, in the what do you call it? In the company of Alibaba and the 40 Thieves. But yeah, I want to take this opportunity to thank everybody for allowing me to continue to present this. We're looking to go into outer space next week, and I've not been there in such a way that I'm qualified to speak. So I'll be as interested to see what happens as you will, I guess. So I thank you all. I was just going to sign off at that point, but I'll be here for questions if need be, Mark. Go ahead.
Okay, I was reading in book number 3 about the entry point and the exit. You know, we think of the south as the entry and the north as the exit, but he was pointing out that he said the entry point could be the consumer and the exit point the provider, and it's not only north and south, it's 360 degrees around that sphere or whatever. It's all interacting, as I understand it. That part wasn't in the book, but it's not only the north and south where you have an entry and exit or a consumer and provider, but it's all throughout the entire entity. There's interactions going on. I see Joel has his mic open.
Yes. Hi, everyone.
Good day, Jalal.
Good day, my friend. How are you guys? I would like to say something here.
We're well and getting better.
Oh, that's very good. I would like to say something here. There is no love, there is no hate, there is no nothing such a names. But what is the action when you are in that what you call love? What's happening? What is the real thing happen when you are in love? What is the real happening when you are in fear? What is the real happening when you are angry? What is the real happening when you are, all these emotions? We give it a names, and my God, we stick with the name, but we do not see the behavior beyond it. You remember when Mr. K said, when you are in a stadium, football match, and there is 100,000 of people there, and you and your lover, do you see anyone else, or you see only your lover? What that mean? What does that indicate? For what? Are you attached to it magnetically, or are you attached to it gravitationally? What that mean? We put the names, and we stuck to it. The names exist for us to understand the position of what happened with us. What is our, even I will bring the names again, gravitational magnetical behavior. What is, am I attached to? What is am I detached from? Detached from all this audience, 100,000 who is sitting there, and attach myself to my lover. There is no one there. What happened? Gravitational, magnetical, you are with him. But what happened if there is another lover, which you call, let's say, a child, a son, who is in another position? Now, which part of your emotion is attached to him, and which part of your emotion attached to your lover? And if it's happened that you need to go to the child, how much it take you to go from A to B? Nothing can stop you in the way. Absolutely nothing. No advertising, no, let's say, restaurant, no cars, no nothing. Nothing will take your vision or your thought from going to that point. So you connect yourself to what? To the highest of the magnetical field by attaching your gravitational field, which is your essence of everything. We use this emotions in a way without the names. Oh, I use the anger. Okay, you can use the anger because the anger it's give you strength. I use the fear because the fear also give you a strength. The strength of the gravitational. You go inside. I use the fields of the love because you go magnetical outwards. So my point here, you know, this every name, it gives you a condition, maghrab positioning. You only you know it. Absolutely only you, because every emotion different, every name different, every position is different. You can use it for your advanced in this what we call plasma. One thing a lot maybe do not realize, when we make this amino acid, it will take us hours. In reality, in nature, it takes millions of years. Millions of years. And you can do it in matter of hours. You see how much you are advanced. The same thing with the understanding. The same thing, we change from dreams to travel, to be, to go. How much we believe in that, how much we elevate. That means how much we use it for our elevation or using. But it need a purpose of serve. The soul do not come to the level of the matter state unless really, really it have a point of serving. So it have to be a point of serve. Even the wish from here to 1 million years. If there is no purpose of serving that the soul give from its inner strength to, you know, make the other souls to accept, nothing will happen. It's only talk. By what? Only unconditional giving. From which point of view? The soul, it's have its own dimension, and it's going give and take its own dimension. It's us, the emotion and the physical, which need to understand this. That means when you give, and the best currency in giving, that love, unconditional giving, you do not need anything from it. Because I said it so many times. It's like, whatever you do, it's like you are going up a mountain, and whatever you have in your shoulders, it's like a weight in your shoulders. How much the others take from you, it's kilograms. Let's say uh, taking in your shoulders 100 kilogram. How much you really beg the others to take from you? 1 kilo, 2 kilo, 500 gram, 1 gram, even 1 gram. In this way you are going up the hill, it will help. One stick, it will give you one push up. So give how much you can. If this is real, I don't think you will not ask every second the people to take. And you make all the shapes and forms and colors and this sense of smelling for the people to take from you what you have, because they will take this, what you call physical and emotion things, and they will give you back in the level of the soul. Not so that you move toward the soul, towards the top of the hill. How much they take from you, how much you proceed and you go up. But it's only names for a behavior. And we do it. All of us do it. We love our parents, we love our children, we love our country, we love our earth, we love everything. But there is one small thing. Where is the unconditional? You can find it. Only you know it. I am with the flower, unconditional. I am with the dog, unconditional. I am with my children, unconditional. If I see that, I put it with all entities. The flower, like the dog, like the rock, like the chair, like everything. It's no difference. Now all of us know that, because we understand that we all came from the same plasma. And every one exists due to his accepted. He accepted to be a rock. This plasma accepted to be a dog. This plasma accepted to be, because it have no otherwise. The strength within itself give him the condition of this existence. And you can measure, like the ganses, what you do. Due to the interaction, what you put, you will get CH3, you will get CO2, you get COO, you will get whatever gases you do. And every one of them, the same plasma, but the condition, which is you made it, make it in this strength. So any amino acid, any soul in respect to the gases will be in the surface of your box, accepted that condition, because this is the level that this amino acid work in. Increase it, that amino acid will be increased. Decrease it, that amino acid will be decreased. Is it important, the shape and the form, the color? Absolutely not. Similar. All of them is similar. In the end, they came from one point. A creation, a creator, it's no different. A circle. What is the end? What is the beginning? So I hope I made my point here, guys. Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you, Jalal. Thank you so much. Yes, I agree with you. And it's a competence to action. I wrote in that chat. And giving conditionally. Yes. It's only names. I feel that.
Anyone else? Perhaps the names just describe an energy in a way that we're just understanding it. As he said with the flower of life, it's just man's way of representing, and not all the stars and all the other things in the universe behave in that manner as well. So the names that we use, it just could be because everything is energies. So it just could be how we're describing it, so to speak, in the matter state. But we can sense the different, or we'll be able to sense more of the different energies without any words or any speaking. Anyone else have another thought? Thank you, Jalal.
My pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
I want to know about this lady who is very poor English, knows about competence to action. What a brilliant statement. Can I borrow that? Do I have to pay you royalties?
Yeah,
Yes, of
500.
course.
500.
Oh yeah, you get it from Jalal. He's my agent.
Anyone else want to share anything else before we conclude? And very apropos, Claudia came in with this at the end because we're going to play Lisa's video that she made. I'm not sure what workshop it's from, but it's from the 429, sorry. And this is How Our Soul Becomes a Star. It's about an 8.5-minute beautiful video Lisa's created. And anyone who would like to join the USKF television to learn how we do it or to use DaVinci Resolve, please contact myself or Ed. And he's here, Ed Weatherall. And then you can see how we work. Not that we know a lot about DaVinci Resolve, but we know a few things and how to create a video, and you can take that back to your language community, or many young people know how to create videos going out the gate. And there's so many points in every workshop that can be made into a small or larger video that will at some point be used and dispersed on the KF TV International. So your work is not wasted, as we see, as we're going to play now with Lisa. So let me just share the screen. Anyone else would like to come in and mention anything else? Your thoughts as of late? How you're progressing? A testimony, perhaps?
Hello.
Yes? Lisbeth?
The first time, thank you so much because all the time learning more. It's very, very special teachers. Maybe maybe it's a point, maybe it's not the same, but when you take a conscientious, your intention is realized. Like, for example, I intend to change my temperature inside my home. I'm sorry. You remember my English is not perfect. I'm so sorry because
Oh, you
maybe
can
you
get by.
understand me.
Yes, you could travel all over the United States, no problem with your English.
Okay. Okay. When intend change my temperature inside my home because in last year my home is very cold all time. It's not better for me. I think, oh, okay, I need clear the zone inside my home because change it and take all things, the guns and whatever it is, but not make it. Well, remember 2 or 3 weeks more, the temperature is changed, but never make it soon. I said, oh my God, only think and got it to think inside my home and change it. Actually, summer is, of course, it's very hot in Miami. I live one block the distance to the sea. Is very, very hot outside my home, but inside my home, all the time, not pushing my air conditioner because I don't like it. But inside my home, it's like the other home, good temperature, nice temperature. Outside is around 89 or 99 degrees, but inside my home is around 70, 72 or 73. But only, I think again, oh, I need make inside my home, make the sun, but never make it. Only take it all guns, whatever it is, and change it. I talked last week with my husband. You think, or maybe it's my emotion inside the home that is a good temperature, but not all the time use air conditioner. But I don't like it. Only the fan, the roof fan, and it's good inside. Maybe it's that for that reason. The Jalal explained need take no names in is only is like normal is changed. I don't know.
Did you get any time angry?
No.
No time? No once you
No.
become angry?
She's peaceful. You know,
Yes.
at the end of this workshop, the 448, Mr. Kesh said, if I ever start to teach you about how the body creates heat or whatever, you will throw out every science book there is. So I think Lisbeth is using her Magrev, which is her brain.
Yes, but
Somehow
never
with the emotions is creating those conditions that she feels comfortable.
Yeah. But never make it a Magrev system because my thing and
your brain is the Magrev. He said, we're not going to show you any more about it because your brain is already a Magrev.
Yeah.
I had the same. I don't use last winter my heater. and I'm in Germany. It's really cold here, but normally I have last year's always the highest temperature here because I'm always freezing. And last year, the first time the first one, I never used my heater on, and I felt good, and I had no my graph, it's just because of my ganses, whatever.
Yeah, your MagRav is interacting, your brain somehow
Yeah,
creating these fields. But did it ever start to get a little chilly, and what did you do? Or it never became chilly?
You mean me?
Yes,
But what means chilly?
cool. Let's say, you know, you.
No. I always feel well. I don't
Okay,
wanna. I just pull it on 1 or 2 because of the freezing outside, that it's not crushing my my heater. Yeah, but normally I had last year's always 5, and I was freezing. And last year, the first time, I just used for 1 or 2 because of the freezing outside, but I felt well here inside. It's incredible.
what were you saying to yourself, Steph? What were you thinking, or did you not think about it and just
I
say
don't-
this is what you want?
I haven't think about it. I just thought some in December, why don't I use my heater? Why, because
Oh, it
I
never came to you because you were already comfortable.
yeah, right.
Okay, yeah.
And I have read today, I always write the last year's all teachings, some different points, and I have read that the butterflies, one in the front and one in the back, is a heating system.
Jalal shared something with us about the nano-coated plate on the back of a chair in front of a fire would reflect the heat. Jalal, do you remember that? Would you want to share anything about that?
Yeah, yeah.
I remember
Well,
you were telling Gianni, and I think Gianni was here. He may not be here now, but you were saying how if you had a nano-coated plate and you put it in back of the chair, it would create the similar conditions, or from the
in the
fire
front,
that they had in the center of the room.
yeah, exactly makes the same condition, front and the back.
What kind of nano? It
Nano-coated plate.
plate.
all, yeah.
Plate. Okay. Yes, I think because I have a lot of here aids, this nano coated aids. How do you call it?
The infinity.
Infinity loop, right? And I have a lot of on my windows, and I think they do a lot of.
What's happening here? Anything interact with your body and do not let it work. That means you spare energy, which is you. How I can say it? It's like you are all the time swimming against what you call it, the flow of the water, and you put something to help you going through it. Always, when you do not use anything from this science of the plasma or your cells, your body is connected to earth. Everything happen is taking and giving and respect. That means it interact with you. So how much your body can hold this strength? So he need to more strength to interact with the environment. all what you do when you put anything, let's say you put infinity loop, you put ball of gases, you put a drop of gases, you spray water of
Mm.
plasma, that prevent this extra energy what you spend yourself, your body spent outside, to spend it inside. Let's say every time you spray, you get at least 5 years of energy backwards. Let's say you are in the 30th, it's different when you are 35 years old. It's different when you are 40 years old. Every time you spend a lot of energy outside to the environment. When you keep yourself detached from the environment, what you do not do anything more than you spare this energy to yourself. So it will support inside. And this, what you call tiny energies, which is prevent from spending outside, it will be in your this is your wealth, as we say it. You keep this energy for you.
Okay. Yes, I'm learning.
It's the same thing when you go and you meditate. What you are doing, you disconnect from the environment.
Mhm.
It's very simple. When you disconnect, what happens? You do not spend more energy outside. This
Mhm.
energy you need it for inside. So when you're dealing with the plasma, you just only need to know this need. I said it last time. There is a teaching in the 86, the blueprint. Mr. Cash speak about system control. If you have a system, how you control it, how you increase the energy in it, how you decrease the energy in it. The
Mhm.
same thing with us, ourselves. I brought this one for all the knowledge seekers. When they do it in the matter state, like when they can increase the energy in the magraph or they reduce the energy in the magraph, even let's the magraph, what's the magraph? It's like the CO2 box. This is also a magraph. Magraph, magnetic gravitational interaction. If you increase or decrease the energy to change what is inside this box, that means you have a system control. The same thing when you control your emotion. But you need to do it in the matter state to understand it. That's all. And then you convert it to your matter, to your body, to your soul, to your emotion. How you control this. It's not that, okay, be a good man. That do not happen like this. If I put my hands in this position, I make a fields. It's not anymore that you see a lot of religious books or religious peoples, they do things. But in reality, this is like monkey see, monkey do without understanding. When we put our hands together, you remember, guys, we create a field. What kind of field? What is the benefit of that? How we can use it? When you shake hands, what the meaning of shaking hands? Yeah, hello, how are you? And what that mean? It's not like this. Now we are, Mr. Cash opening the creation for us. We need to understand why this behavior, what he want from this interaction, and how I can benefit from it. If is it giving or is it taking? What he's giving and what he's taking. what I can give, what can I take? Millions of questions you can ask yourself, and you can all see it and do it in the simple Magra box, the CO2 box,
Mhm.
the same plates,
Yeah.
the distance give you a different ganses, that mean give you different field. The same plate, you have it in your hand. But no one really played with the box, with the CO2 box.
I play with
one.
my hands.
Right,
Play
this
with
is-
your hands. But
this-
but you know what? When you do something, just sit with it. Just analyze it. What's happening? Okay, if I change my left hand a little bit in this position, what will happen? Don't take it in 1 minute and finish. Take 1 hour, take 1 day, take 1 month, take 1 year. Because this is interaction. We know there is interaction. What it do, how I can benefit from it. And it's all in your benefit. Nothing you do, like Mr. Cass said, nothing you do in the plasma is wrong. But what is the outcome of it? And how I can, if you don't want to serve the others, how I can serve the inside your universe, what is inside you, how I can serve it without killing, without eating, without, because if you satisfy the energy which is you need inside, you do not need to look at outside. You stop. One thing is very important, that you do not go outside to look for energy in physical terms or in emotion terms. Now,
I-
you are one step in road of peace.
Right, and Mr. Kesh did say that if they were going to use food to create mayhem, that he would release a feeding system. Now, we know about copying using the CO2 box as a feeding system. We know some other light feeding systems, but I would think this would be a good time because they're using energy and oil to create mayhem, the cup of heat, and perhaps you are the cup yourself. But he said in this last workshop, if I taught you how the body does the heating, maybe this is what he's
Good.
thinking about teaching, because they
Very,
are
very
using,
good, Mark. You brought this one.
yes. that,
Okay. We brought a box. We put the 4 ganses with the amino acid, and we copy the field of the orange in this cup. Yes. Okay. What if this cup is your body, and you hang this 4 ganses and with the amino acid? In each gans there is a touch of amino acid of itself, and you put it and you wear it. What will happen? What will happen if you come close across orange field? What will happen if you come across any field? What will happen? You don't think this energy will be in that cup, which is you?
Right, and now take it to the next level. Do we need the ganses and the amino acids? Maybe we do while we're learning, for
Yeah.
sure.
Do it first, learn,
Yeah,
and then you will see you can do it without ganses. The same thing, running. You remember in the teaching, running was using the pen with the knowledge seekers, and how he teaching them. He using for taking the pain out, and then he noticed that he do not need the pen. He just with his finger. It's the same pen, but first you need to activate this. You need to understand it. You need to know how it works.
Yeah.
Then you can mimic it with you.
that's what they're sharing, the capabilities of the soul of the man, which we've thought we didn't have these abilities. Now
We need a push, only a small push.
Yep.
But do not attach yourself for this push, because you are important, not the push.
I try to create with the star formation of both hands to create.
Yeah. But after that, do you really need the star formation? But first, you need to do it. You need to experience it. And then you go to the emotion beyond it.
Yeah.
And when you get the emotion finished, it's one step to the soul.
Yeah, sure. I'm on the way. Step by step.
Very good.
Perhaps you'll be teaching the others this fall on some of your understanding. Stephanie. They are certainly going to be looking for ways. But again, I'd rather see the energy systems being deployed and the gas systems being deployed. In this way, it's going to reach the soul of this planet and the entire planet. But yes, it's all leading up to the capabilities of the soul. I made the man in the image of myself, in the fields of myself, not in the physical looking like the man. Okay, any other comments? Winter is coming for many of us, maybe not, although there are some colder parts in the south as you get down into the lower southern hemisphere.
We'll hope the transmutation happens.
Yeah, these satellite systems are going to divert a disaster, he said, or you know, the refugees of souls is what they're looking. So if we have the technology, why shouldn't we use it?
Yeah, then we can travel with our souls.
Until the leaders come to their right mind. It's already on the table with the governments.
Yeah.
The energy, gas systems, and so on. And maybe we're going to shortly hear this announcement that Mr. Keshet mentioned. 2 or 3 of the, at least one of the leading governments was ready to sign on to this. And then they'll all run, he said, like rabbits to it.
Have somebody signed?
He hasn't, he said they would allow the government to announce it themselves. They're not going to announce who or where.
Okay.
At this point.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else before we listen to this beautiful answer from Mr. Kesh generated by Claudia with her question? He says, you trigger and I respond. And Lisa's made it into a beautiful video. Thank you, Lisa, Claudia, and Mr. Kesh.
I have one maybe comment. Maybe Jalal or Alex helping me explain more. I put at the near the head to my daughter at the bed. I put zinc plates, more zinc plates, and zinc. I'm sorry.
Oxide.
Then is nanomaterial and zinc plate and oh my god.
The zinc
And
oxide, ZNO, ZNO.
Yeah. Okay, I put near the head to my daughter, and I think mostly the time she more speak it because she not speak. She little more words, not completely words because it's difficult for her, but my thing is that better or not better? Because the nanomaterial is getting. I don't know that is good for continuous or retired from the near the bed of Vanessa. I don't know. Because nanomaterial is getting.
Can you repeat that? I don't
Bilal
think.
or Alex?
Did you understand the question?
Yes, because I put zinc plates and spirals, nano zinc, near the head and my daughter at the bed, no? But I think she, do you see? You listen, she is more words now. But the other day, I remember the nanomaterials is getting, I don't know, is better continue or much better, I don't know. It's because she more works, but the material is getting. But she now is talking more.
Okay.
You're saying the material is reaching her? The fields are reaching her? Is that what you're saying? You said the material is getting. What do you mean?
Yeah, but because nanomaterial is getting all the time. It's not receiving, is getting.
Oh, giving. It's
There's
giving,
no giving. No.
not giving.
Nanomaterial
Okay,
is not giving.
okay.
Nanomaterial is pulling. No? Sorry, I don't.
Pulling. You mean taking?
Yeah. It's
Okay.
getting, not giving, it's getting. But I don't know, is good continue near my daughter or not better? Because I remember the nanomaterial is getting.
What you are trying to do? Building a cells of the brain of your daughter?
Yes.
Okay. If you go to the teaching where Giovanni teach about what he done to his daughter.
Giovanni? I don't
Yeah.
know.
This is the blueprint. Anyone remember, guys? The piece, the 2 days piece. Okay, let me check it out where it is.
For
I
her,
will.
maybe for her or no?
Sorry.
The teaching for her? Her teachings? No, I don't know.
What Gianni done to his daughter when she was through the accident? He
Giovanni.
made he made so many ganses and applications to.
I sent to her, Jalal. I sent.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay.
just when Giovanni speak about that, he brought up all the what he done, but he sometimes he didn't speak. He just put the all the exactly what he done, what kind of ganses, and how he apply it. He just wrote everything, and you just stop the. You just stop the play and you read what he's done there. And this, I think, if you use the ganses, it's more better than the nano.
Yes, I know. My thing is because mostly the 1 year ago, I talked with Mr. Kesh about this barrier for her use a health unit, but he said it depends what the soul for her, a decision for soul her, because she is mostly the 38 years. She have 32 years. I say, oh my God, and I take care with the how many gans or whatever it is put around my hair, because is I don't violated her decision. They saw her decision, but my thing, I don't know. Maybe I put more guns or whatever it is, and she decided. No?
You said you were hearing more words.
Yeah. No.
Mhm.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. I think the other day I talked with my husband. Is my impression or Vanessa talk more the time she's talk? Say, oh, it's good. I
Nice.
say only relation about the sink. I said, oh my God, I put the sink near her, but I remember she's nanocoded as I don't know is good. Maybe put only sink and change it. So maybe the brain is in an imbalance and the sink hyper balance because getting, I don't know, but I'm not a doctor, so
Yeah,
the
I'm not a
care.
doctor either.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I know in the what they play at the end of usually at the Portuguese meeting teaching is you put some you know you make a nano-coated coil and you put some CO2 on it and some zinc, you create a very peaceful man.
I know, but she is very peaceful like me, so yeah. Okay. I learning that teach the Jalan talk with us. Thank you so much.
Did you want to add something, Jalal? You had your mic open.
No, it's okay. I forget it. Thank you.
No problem.
But anyway, really, you can help her a lot when you go to that teaching what Claudia sent you, and just really study it. And it's not very difficult to do. And always try to work with the fields of the plasma. And don't forget, even if it's not noticed there, don't forget a touch of amino acid to the ganses.
Yes, it's all the
This
time.
is very important.
It's a connection.
Yeah.
Yes, so that I remember it's a connection. But I put the amino acid inside the containers for replicated, not the water. Inside because my thing is I see the replicated unit cell at the Cash Foundation. I have only one container inside it, and not give more amino acids. Say, and my thing is okay. The amino acid is inside the container, and all the time when replicated, I put the amino acid inside the container, not the water. That's correct, or is it wrong for me? So sorry. Wrong. Sí, mi amor. You understand, or very confused?
It's a little bit confused, but
Can we
in any
take
shape and form, try to do the star formation field of this star formation, and you put your beauty child there, and she will take from it what she need, and I think she will do good.
let us
I think for making star formation, but I put in the three under is CO2. I'm sorry. What is the good formation with the only basics gas?
No, not that. You go to that teaching and you see what can build, yes, what can build the cells.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'm so sorry. Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Because it's many information, and all the time you learning, and the other one video, the other video, whatever it is, But oh my God,
That-
when they say
This is the purpose. This is the purpose. If you succeed by serving
Yeah.
this soul, you succeed with everyone and all over time.
yeah. But when you say it directly, it's much better. Thank you.
Thank you, my dear.
Alex, you
thank
had
you
your
so much.
mic open? Did you want to add something?
Yes, Mark. I just wanted to reinforce what Jalal said. The way I describe it is you want to enlist the services of the other cells in the body, because there are cells that are functioning very well, and then there are a few cells that are causing you concern. And it's not possible for you just to concern yourself with those cells, because then you are prescribing what the problem is and therefore what the solution is. And you don't know that. So what I'm saying is that you have to incorporate the whole body within the field. And so from what I gathered, you put the nano coating at the head. And I just want to say with reinforcing what Jalal said, if you move to the GANs, it's even better. But you want to enlist the services of the rest of the body, like right down to the feet. So if you could put another GANs at the feet and have the body sit in between, that would be at least 2 fields. If you could put other fields around the body, and then that would complete the star formation. So you have to look at the body, like the soul of the body, the heart, and the soul of the man, the head, as working in combination as well. And so you will actually have more working in your favor, and you won't be dictating who and what is coming to help, if you understand what I'm saying. You just call out all the cells in the body and say, hey, help me, help your daughter, and you go that way. Is that good, Lizzie?
Thank you so much. Thank you, Alex.
This is exactly unconditional giving. You do
Yes.
not dictate what you give.
Okay, my suggestion is we all take 1 minute. We have 29 reactors here, and we give to the soul of Lisbeth's daughter, if that's okay, Lisbeth, and she can take what she needs from our giving, from our pure giving, which is from our souls.
So much.
Shall we do
I
this?
crying, yeah.
Okay.
You remember that I'm not crying by now, crying because say Mark. Thank you, Mark.
We feel your emotion.
Yes.
Let's take 1 minute and gather our Magravs together and give to the soul of Lizzie's daughter. We're not forcing it. She can take what she needs. We are present. Let's start now for 1 minute. Thank you, Lisbeth, for allowing us to give to your daughter.
Thank you so much, Keshe family. Thank you, thank you.
And so how easy and effective it is to work through the soul. Once we're learning a little bit more, I think this is the way the Universal Council and the others will start moving. Okay, I'm going to play How Our Soul Becomes a Star. Thank you, Claudia, for bringing that question forward for all of us to learn more and understand more. Anyone else before we go to this final 8.5-minute clip? Another beauty created by Mr. Cash. Yes, Anna?
Yes, hi, thank you. Very briefly, thank you, all of you. I am completing the process of my first GANs making. I have two questions. Number one, when do you know that the production of GANs is completed? And number two is when you separate the amino acids, do you leave the GANs there? Could you leave it for a day or two, or you have to immediately start the process of rinsing out the salt out of the solution?
Anyone would like to? As Jalal just said, nothing is wrong.
Do you want me to go ahead, Mark?
Anyone, sure.
Yes,
Why you
when
go
this-
ahead?
because
You
that's
go.
what the judge said. You got to look ahead. Don't worry about what's behind.
Okay, go a feet. Go ahead.
Thank you so much. So, with respect to collecting the GANs, this is a daily occurrence. Once you start with that, it just continues to produce. As long as you provide the conditions, it will not stop producing. There's another second criteria, and that is the need. If the need is there for the production of the GANs, it will actually produce even more. But there is no prescribed way to do this. So like if you don't do it today or you do it tomorrow or whatever, there's no hard and fast rule. So it's at your convenience. And it is quite important for it to be at your convenience, because this is a positive affair. This is a welcoming affair. So it's not a drudgery or work, if you understand. But the second part of your question with respect to the amino acid, by skimming the amino acid from the surface of it, you collect the amino acid, and then you go through the process of gathering up the GANs and washing it, so to remove the salt. The reason you're doing that is because you're planning on using that for the drinking. A little bit of salt in the GANs is not a problem. In fact, this is one of the reasons that you don't actually have to put the GANs in the water. You can put the GANs beside the water. But if you're washing the GANs, then you're washing the salt out. And once you've gotten to the point that you're happy with, then you add the amino acid back. And what you will notice, if you watch carefully, the amino acid will no longer sit at the surface. It'll just go and spread through the entire GANs. So the whole bottle will become connected to the amino acid. So the main purpose of this amino acid is to maintain this connection through the various energy levels. And so that's, you have to think of the purpose of what you're doing with the GANs. So to produce the GANs and then maintain connection. And then what is the purpose of the whole production? And that changes the scheme. So if you are looking to provide GANs, then you will get more GANs. If you want to get more GANs, then you will get less. And so, because the GANs responds to your inner emotion. It doesn't respond to the physicality. It manifests the energy in the physicality. And so this is a special place where the GANS has a double personality. It's there physically, but it exchanges energy plasmatically. The same way the water inside your body. The water inside your body is not the water that comes out of the tap. It is a plasma water, so that it has a physicality. You can squeeze your hand and you can feel the GANS inside, but it also exchanges energy, and so becomes part of the physical manifestation, but exchanges energy on a plasmatic level. So everything that we're doing here, and you have to think in these terms, is to facilitate the energy transfer. And so the giving is first, the receiving is second, and those two reactions are virtually instantaneous. Thank you for your question.
Jalal, would you like to go ahead?
They already take the head. What can I do? I will
Would
take
you
the
like to
arms.
go with tail?
The feet, give him the feet.
No, it's okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I like the idea of pouring off the amino acids. Try to gather them in the corner of your container and then just pour off that with some of the salt water. So you'll be able to add a drop back into, after the solution gets rinsed of the salt, you'll be able to add the amino acids back in. You can skim them off, but I'm thinking of pushing them all to the edge of the box, if you can, sort of gather them, and just pour that into a container and keep it salty. The amino acids need to be in a salt environment. As soon as you put them in the water, they disperse, as Alex was saying. And how do you know when it's ready? I think the amino acid starts forming when there's no more oxygen left in the box, per se. That's when you see the amino acids start forming. But yes, you can keep it continuously running. I think, you know, if your nanoplate, you see some of it at the bottom, or there's no much left, you can add another plate on top of that and just continue it.
Thank you very much. And then I will take like the large syringe to extract the GANs from the bottom of the container. That is correct?
You
Yes,
can do
that's
it that
correct.
way. Yep. If you want to keep continuing the process in your original box. I've kept CO2 in salty water for 3 years. And it still
Oh.
seems fine.
And
I've
do you
taken
keep the,
some of the CO2 out and then just use that if I need any amino acids, which are on the top.
so you could, if I, correct me if I didn't understand.
You're not wrong. Okay.
Okay, perfect.
Except for your
So
salty.
you could take part of the amino acid and part of the CO2 and you don't have to take them all. You could use it like in a small aliquot of each of them.
Yeah, I would say yes. Anyone object to that idea? A partial amino acids and a part of the GANs, and then work with those while the system continues to produce.
Oh, definitely. This is how we did when we introduced the cups of life in China. This became an urgency, something that people needed the GANs within 24 hours. So the difference, what you have to look at, is the gradient charge. So let's say if you had 20 drops of GANs, you can either make a gradient by having another with 200 drops of GANs or another with 1 drop of GANs. In both cases, you created a gradient, you understand? So the higher the gradient, the higher the field strength. And that's what you really want to look at. So this is one of the reasons that we were so successful with the cups of life, because we were changing the field strength. And so if you're giving, the higher gives to the weaker. But if you're taking, then the weaker takes from the higher. So in some cases, we had to deplete the energy. And in other cases, it was deficient, so we had to add the energy. So this is why I'm saying to you, you want to think about what it is that you want to achieve and work towards that goal. And then you design from there.
And we'd love to see your pictures, Anna, maybe next week or the week after. If you had some pictures, we'd be happy to discuss it.
Perfect. I'll bring it. And then you never touch the nano-coated plates, even if they have something that you assume is GANs or something, only whatever GANs is at the bottom. Is that correct?
Yeah, you do not, Mr. Kesh said, we advise not to drink the GANs itself and touch the nanomaterial. It's just too much energy.
Yeah, no, but when I said touch, Mark, it's not touching by ingestion, it's touching by scraping whatever residuals is on the plates. That's what I refer to.
That's right, because there is a structure on the nano coating is a structure, and it's kind of loose. So when you touch it, you kind of move things around. And you can't see it; it's on a microscopic level, but you still move things around. So in your mind, you have to see the atoms moving around when you touch them. You know, just the way the rice will swirl in the water when you wash it. You know, so you just have to vision the atoms doing the same thing. There isn't any harm to you. What most of us are energy deficient. And so one of the comments that I hear so frequently from Canadians is, oh, you know, I didn't feel anything with the plasma water. I just got a little bit of extra energy. And no big deal, right?
And again, if you see those little black flecks in the bottom of a GANs you've made, that's probably some of the nanomaterial has flaked off. But Mr. Kesh said over time that will create the magrevs and dissolve itself into the GANs. So it'll use itself up. That's why the plate becomes depleted. It uses itself up. Of course, once something is nano-coated, it's always nano-coated.
Thank you, great.
Yes, bring some pictures if you can, and we'd be happy to see them. And congratulations on your first GANs. And as you know, you can GANs anything if you know how to play.
Yes, I'm learning, and thank you for the
Yeah, we
teaching.
all are. Everyone's learning and growing into this knowledge. There's no one that's arrived, I don't think.
Yeah.
But we're all growing at different speeds into the knowledge in different positions. So, and that's why we learn from each other. Very good. Anyone else want to add anything else before we go to this beautiful clip? Thank you all for joining today. Thank you, Alex, and all the others who've come in and shared their knowledge. Jalal, Galib, anyone else who's contributed today, Claudia, and so on. Randy. Thank you all for being here. We continue on. Things are getting brighter and brighter as the world around us appears to becoming dimmer and dimmer. So I think there's two contrasting fields ready to meet. And as Mr. Kesh said, the smallest nation in the world, Belgium, got in a fight with the creator and they lost. So thank you again for being here today.